Very good afternoon and extending a warm welcome to all students. Welcome once again to the live virtual classes organized by the Board of Studies Academic ICAI. In today's discussion, we are taking up chapter 17 on correlation and regression. Sir, very good afternoon to you, sir.
Very good afternoon, sir. Arjit, sir, welcome to you.
Thank you, sir.
For addressing the students in the, or I can say that it's a very nice topic and the quantitative aptitude, correlation, regression. On behalf of Board of Studies Academic, I welcome you once again, sir. And it's our privilege, and we are very happy to enjoy your section also in terms of topics which you have been last few sections very dedicatively delivered. Wow. Yes, that is very important. Actually, students' point of view also, and which is very, very useful, as well as the examination point of view, knowledge gaining and everything you have been covered in the last section very dedicatively. Even I am watching these two sections very carefully, and it was very nice and fantastic. Students are also requested to follow these sections once again repetitively, that they can gain in terms of knowledge, in terms of means scoring, and in terms of means they will get the confidence after gaining this. They will be definitely passing after thoroughly watching these sections, and that they can be sure about these sections also because sir has been delivered. The important aspect is the logical reasoning and the statistics part also. Total 60 marks. From these 60 marks, we have to gain the very good number of marks. In the logical reasoning also be 20 marks is a very, very easily you can able to score. And the even in the statistics part also be probability and probability distribution may be little maybe you feel difficult, but it is not as difficult once you understand the logic, and it depends upon the faculty also who elaborate and discuss the thoroughly explain the logical terminologies very well. I hope sir has been explained, and you people are to have understood very well, and it has been very well explained by Arijit Chakrabarti sir in the last sections of the probability and probability distribution also. Very nice, and we appreciate in this regard also. We move to the important aspect of the correlation and regression, which is very, very useful in terms of business applications also be in daily life also. In the earlier topics, we talk about the univariate distribution. Univariate means the single point of time where the heights of the students or weights of the students are be measured also be like that. Here we can talk about the bivariate kind of things. Actually, bivariates means at the same point of time, actually, we talk about the demand and supply, demand and price. What is the in terms of we can be forecast the things are also be based on this bivariate data also be that. And I'm limiting this discussion very little because the sir is there here. And what is the relation based on this correlation, the bivariate data also be, and we can talk that correlation and regression also be. Correlation, what are the types? If the data are moving in the same direction, whether increasing or decreasing in the same direction, it is the positive. It is decreasing or increasing, like when in the opposite directions, we can say that there is a negative correlation also. If there is no movement, actually zero correlation are also be there, and such kind of even correlation types are also be spurious correlation. What is the types and such kind of discussion. Correlation lies between -1 and +1, and what is types of measuring of correlation analysis also be there. Here we have the scatter diagram method, one method, and one is Spearman's rank correlation and Carl Pearson's product movement correlation, and coefficient of concurrent deviations. There are four methods of the correlation methods are also be there, and their proper what is the correlation properties are also be there, and the coefficient of correlation is unit free measurement also be there, and the coefficient of correlation remains invariant under change of origin or scale also be. That means it is not affected also be correlation is concerned, but only thing is this kind of like signs are if the sign factors are influencing actually whatever the coefficients are there. That also be very important. One multiple choice question expected to come, such kind of things also, which are given beautiful example given in the study material also be. And what is the coefficient of correlation between limiting with -1 to +1 also be there. And apart from that, what is the regression is also be very, very important aspect. A regression equation means suppose we want to estimate the for equation like y on x, regression equation y on x, y equal to a plus bx, x on y, x equal to a plus y. And regression generally here the equation is estimators or predictions that can be using the error terms are also be given. And if you see the diagrams in the study material which are beautifully given also be further the normal equations how it can be determined also be from that normal equation method of least squares can be applied also be. And this is a very important aspects that I want to convey. What is the coefficient of determination, coefficient of non-determination also be. These are the very, very, very important aspects. If you study these aspects, Sir is there with you, and Sir is a very good teacher. And you have to only thing is enjoy 2 hours or to 3 hours with his lovely voice and lovely lecture. And this is the you pay attention on this section, and from this chapter maximum number of questions you may expect from this chapter is 6 questions are also be that. Sometimes it is 5 or 4 also be maximum 6 questions or probability is there for these questions also be. Over to Arjit Chakravarti sir. Welcome to you once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sir, once again, and thanks for guiding all the students about the entire structure of this chapter, including the marks weightage. So I'm sure the students will follow your advice and they will continuously focus, concentrate. You have covered all the areas, the correlation, the important domains, and the formula as well as regression. So we are now starting with the chapter 17. This is, as sir has said, very interesting, as well as if you see, this is a scoring chapter. And there are a number of terms which I will also explain in Hindi and major areas, because some of the technical terms which are there. So first and foremost, correlation is in Hindi, if you say it is sah-sambandh, that means it is a relation between two variables. Sir also mentioned about bivariate data. That means we are going to consider two sets of data together. For example, say the investment of a company and the profit, or say the height and weight, something like this. So one part of chapter 17 is the first part is the correlation, and then we have the regression. Regression को हिंदी में अक्सर हम लोग प्रतिगमन कहते हैं. And from the regression, as sir talked about the equation of y on x, that means if I know the dependent, say the independent variable x, I can estimate the dependent variable y. So this is also a type of prediction, and we can say in Hindi Bhavishyavani. So this is a very important chapter, and it has two parts. The first is correlation, which is sah-sambandh, the degree of correlation. And then we have the next part, which is regression equations, also usually known as pratigaman. And from the regression equation, we shall be able to predict the value of the dependent variable. So the key terms we will see are covariance, that means sah-prasaran as we call it, correlation coefficient, which is the, there are different ways of computing the correlation coefficient, like we have the Carl Pearson's product movement correlation coefficient, and of course the rank correlation coefficient. And then we will see that even in regression, we have two basic coefficients, which are known as regression coefficients. So first we will have an understanding about what is correlation, the meaning and concepts, the types of correlation, as Sir briefed you about positive and negative correlation, and the fact that correlation has a value which ranges from, it is basically -1 to +1. And then we will have a deep study, a deep dive into the 4 measures of correlation. So dear students, as Sir advised you and briefed you about the number of marks, so approximately 5-6 questions are expected, and there are a number of formula which we need to apply. So for example, for the Carl Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient, we have a formula. And then we will move into the Spearman's rank correlation coefficient, followed by the CCD, as we call it, the coefficient of concurrent deviations. So there are 4 very important tools of finding out whether 2 variables have any relation, sambandh as we call it, right? So that is what is meant by correlation. And agar 2 variable mein koi sambandh hai, how strong is that correlation? So किस तरह का गहराई, जो हम लोग कहते हैं 2 very deep relation. So we will see that if 2 variables have a correlation coefficient, say of +0.9, that means almost a 90% correlation, which signifies a very high level of positive correlation. So there are 4 formula and 4 principles, 4 tools, measures we will understand one by one. Then we will move into the next part on regression, and there the analysis of regression, that means what is regression meant by, and the meaning, including the conceptual framework, what is meant by regression coefficients, and then how do we actually predict the value of the dependent variable once we know the value of the independent variable and we understand or we know what is the correlation, the regression coefficient, which is denoted by Byx, or it can be Bxy. काफी सारे महत्वपूर्ण सूत्र है जो हम लोग कहते हैं कि इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर्मूली विच वी नीड टू नो, मैथमेटिकल रिलेशनशिप काफी सारे यहाँ पे है. And then we will move into the questions from the exercise, MCQ questions, both the theoretical part as well as practical part, and then important questions from the last few years, MTP of ICAI, and we will close with the RTP. Chapter takeaways, as Sir mentioned, that correlation ultimately deals with 2 variables, of course, as per our curriculum we have, and therefore there can be different type of sambandh ya fir sah sambandh. It can be positive, it can be negative, and there may be 0 correlation. So one by one we will see that, and regression helps us in the prediction of the particular data. So once we know the value of the independent variable and once we have the regression coefficient, we can find out the value of the dependent variable. Now the principles, why are we studying this? We are now at the almost the fag end of our quantitative aptitude paper. We are just left with today's session, and the last is on index numbers. So if you see the principles of correlation regression, it has a lot of business applications. When you think of artificial intelligence, you are aware that AI platform, इसके कई तरीके, कई तरह के प्लेटफॉर्म होते हैं. फर्स्ट वी से जनरेटिव एआई, उसके साथ साथ प्रेडिक्टिव एआई. So you know predictive. So AI can also provide certain prediction, projection, forecasting. And ये prediction की जब बात होता है, even in artificial intelligence, when you see machine learning, deep learning systems, actually they follow number of statistical principles and tools, and one of them is correlation regression. So business leaders in any organization, they rely on data analytics and statistics. As we have seen in every chapter, statistics deals with practical areas. अब वो ग्राफ आप कहिए या फिर हिस्टोग्राम कहिए, वहां से सेंट्रल टेंडेंसी, डिस्पर्शन, so many measures of dispersion, probability, theoretical distribution. So each of them, each of these measures or tools हेल्प्स इन बिजनेस डिसीजन मेकिंग। इसीलिए कोरिलेशन, रिग्रेशन, सहसंबंध, प्रतिगमन और जो हम लोग भविष्यवाणी करते हैं उसका एक सार्थक, देयर इज अ डायरेक्ट एंड सक्सेसफुल एप्लीकेशन इन द वर्ल्ड ऑफ बिजनेस। For example, for say a company wants to find out whether there is a direct relationship between the advertisement expenses, business promotion expenses, and the revenue. So we know in today's world, companies go for digital promotion, they have brand ambassadors, they use all types of sales promotion techniques. They want to enhance their brand reputation. But why this is done? This is done in order to increase their sales, revenue. So advertisement के पीछे जो खर्चे हो रहे हैं और रेवेन्यू, ये दोनों में क्या कोई संबंध है? अगर है तो कितना गहरा है? So it's a very practical thing which we need in business, marketing, advertisement expenses, and its link with the revenue. Similarly, employee productivity, understanding new opportunities or to improve management processes, ऑप्टिमाइज करने के लिए बहुत सारे बिजनेस डिसीजंस कोरिलेशन और रिग्रेशन के ऊपर पूरा यू कैन से ये आधारित है। डिसीजन मेकिंग इज बेस्ड एंटायरली ऑन correlation regression because these deal with the interrelationship between two data. And as you can see in this mapping which I have done on the first slide, the opening slide, we will move into bivariate data, and you can see that correlation, we have different categories. We have the positive correlation, negative correlation. So try to familiarize yourself with the basic terms. सबसे पहले जो important points या terms है उसके बारे में हम लोग थोड़ा सा जानकारी ले लेंगे, and then we will move into number of problem solving. So you can see दो तरह के होते हैं correlation and measures of correlation. Four tools are there, 4 types of measures. Scatter diagram, then we have the Carl Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient, जिसको हम लोग R से लिखते हैं, we denote it by the letter R. And then we have the Spearman's rank correlation coefficient, जिसे हम लोग कभी कभी RCC कह के बुलाते हैं, rank correlation coefficient. And the last but not the least is what we call CCD, that is the coefficient of concurrent deviations. मतलब correlation के 4 important measures होते हैं, and इसके बाद हम लोग चले जाएंगे regression में, और जहां पे we will look at the 2 regression lines. That means regression line of y on x and the regression line of x on y. और ये जो 2 regression coefficients होंगे उनमें क्या relation है? What relations do they have? Are they linked? So this is a very interesting area of statistics as well as a scoring topic. Parallelly, it has a lot of real life applications in the world of business, commerce and industry. So सबसे पहले we see bivariate data. Sir, give you an idea about bivariate data. इसका मतलब क्या है कि एक ही समय में at one point of time we are dealing with 2 sets of data, यानी 2 वेरिएबल के साथ हम लोग एक साथ काम कर रहे हैं. And as you can see, bivariate data को हिंदी में हम लोग कहते हैं द्विचर. द्वि means 2. So द्विचर data involving 2 variables x and y. And for example, it could be the marks in statistics and mathematics, person's score in economics and accountancy, the relation between height and weight, the relation between, as I mentioned, that the total advertisement expenses to the revenue. So therefore, different categories of variables, कई सारे variables है जिसके बीच में संबंध, the relation. So you know data science deals with what data? Numbers, figures. And in our earlier discussion, we already had a deep understanding about data. It can be, usually we know ये quantifiable होते हैं, लेकिन qualitative data भी है. So ultimately here, correlation deals with the relation. आप स्लाइड पे देख सकते हो सहसंबंध, यानी रिश्ता, क्या रिश्ता है दोनों वेरिएबल के बीच. That is why it is called bivariate, द्विचर. एंड सिंपल मीनिंग क्या है कि जब 2 चीजें x और y एक साथ बदलती है तो उनके बीच का जो रिश्ता है उसे हम लोग सहसंबंध या कोरिलेशन कहते हैं. एंड अ वेरी सिंपल एग्जांपल ऑन द स्लाइड इज, जैसे जैसे आप सोचिए गर्मी, व्हेन वी हैव द पीक ऑफ समर, देयर इज ऑलवेज अ डिमांड फॉर आइसक्रीम. सो कैन आई से दैट टेम्परेचर, जो कि एक वेरिएबल है, अब जरूर यू विल अग्री दैट टेम्परेचर इज अ रैंडम वेरिएबल, इट इज अ कंटिन्यूअस रैंडम वेरिएबल, राइट? सो टेम्परेचर एंड आइसक्रीम का जो डिमांड या फिर आइसक्रीम सेल्स, देयर कुड बी अ डायरेक्ट रिलेशन या फिर कोई संबंध हो सकता है. सो ये एक रिश्ता, यू कैन कॉल इट अ रिलेशन. एंड देन कोरिलेशन टेल्स अस, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, कि दो वेरिएबल में क्या कोई रिश्ता है? डू दे हैव एनी सह संबंध? उनके बीच क्या कोई देयर अ रिलेशन बिटवीन देम? इफ सो, हाउ स्ट्रॉन्ग इज द रिलेशन? राइट? सो स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ रिलेशनशिप यानी इस रिश्ते की ताकत क्या है, दैट इज मेजर्ड बाय कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट. सो कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट से हम लोग नापने की कोशिश करते हैं कि दो वेरिएबल के बीच आपस का जो सहसंबंध या फिर द रिलेशन दे हैव, हाउ स्ट्रॉन्ग. And as sir mentioned that, yes, so correlation coefficient, we have a range. It can have a range of values, लेकिन upper boundary is +1, जिसे हम लोग कहते हैं perfect positive correlation. And we have the lower boundary, which is -1, which is referred to as the perfect negative correlation. So you can see here in the next part of, we are first going through the Mukhya Shabd, as we call it, that is the major terms which you need to be absolutely familiar के साथ साथ clarity भी होनी चाहिए. So we look at the definition. दो variables x और y के बीच जो linear relationship. So in correlation we are restricted only to the linear relationship. That means it is a straight line. Two variables could be linked through an equation y equal to ax plus b. So it's a linear, straight line की equation है. इसे हम लोग रेखिक, रेखा मतलब you know straight line, सरल रेखा as we call it. So रेखिक संबंध. What is meant by रेखिक संबंध? It means a linear relationship. And please remember that the correlation coefficient यानी जो r है उसका range जो है, the minimum is -1 and the maximum it can assume is +1. परफेक्ट कोरिलेशन हम लोग कब कहेंगे? जब दो वेरिएबल के बीच का कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट यानी सहसंबंध, द वैल्यू इज +1. दैट मींस 100% कोरिलेशन. अगर कोई दो वेरिएबल के बीच, इफ द कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट वर्क्स आउट टू -1, दैट मींस इनमें दोनों में क्या है? परफेक्ट नेगेटिव कोरिलेशन. That means अगर variable x increases by 10%, variable y will decrease by 10%. यानी exact amount but in the opposite direction. Again, there can be no correlation. We sometimes refer to it as zero correlation. That means दोनों variable by varied data, द्विचर data, उनके बीच there may not be any टाइप ऑफ लीनियर रिलेशन या फिर रैखिक संबंध. और हम लोग उस सिचुएशन में क्या कहेंगे? वी विल से दैट दीज टू वेरिएबल्स, ये दोनों का आपस में कोई संबंध नहीं है, ये इंडिपेंडेंट है, एक दूसरे से इंडिपेंडेंट है, और इसमें इनमें जीरो कोरिलेशन है, नो कोरिलेशन. सो प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट कोरिलेशन वी हैव पॉजिटिव एंड नेगेटिव, एंड कोरिलेशन रेंजेस. कोरिलेशन का जो कोएफिशिएंट है, it ranges from -1 to +1. And as sir mentioned, you must have noted that correlation coefficient एक unit free number है. इसका कोई यूनिट नहीं है. That means it cannot be measured in kgs or grams or liter or years or rupees. ये पूरा एक शुद्ध संख्या. That means it's a pure number. इसका कोई भी इकाई या यूनिट नहीं होती है. And we will later on go through some interesting cases जहां पे नॉनसेंस कोरिलेशन हो सकता है, यानी दो ऐसे वेरिएबल्स के बीच संबंध दिखता है जो असल जिंदगी में एक दूसरे से नहीं जुड़े हैं. So these are sometimes called spurious. Spurious means false. Spurious means something which is not realistic, untrue. So इसे हम लोग कहते हैं spurious correlation and sometimes nonsense correlation. So these are very important terms. जो मुख्य जो हमारे जो शब्द है, we should be clear. Now we again see the direction of movement. यानी जब correlation coefficient इसका minimum value -1 है, maximum value is +1. That means correlation coefficient can be negative as well as positive, but it is bounded. इसका एक range है between -1 and +1. So when the correlation coefficient is more than 0, that means it is more than 0 but less than 1. हम लोग क्या कहेंगे कि भाई दो वेरिएबल जो है इनमें चेंजेस जो होंगे इट विल टेक प्लेस मे बी एक ही दिशा में इट विल मूव. So that means if, say for example, think of the stock market, if the Sensex increases by 30% and if the share price, if the price of the share of a particular company increases by say 10%, that means दोनों के बीच कुछ तो रिश्ता है, क्योंकि जब सेंसेक्स बढ़ रहा है ये कंपनी का जो शेयर वो भी एक फ्रैक्शन में इट इज इंक्रीजिंग. Sensex going up by 30% and the share price of a company increasing by 10%. Conversely, अगर Sensex गिर जाता है by 30%, the company's share price will also decline by 10%. यानी यहां पे दोनों वेरिएबल एक ही दिशा में या तो बढ़ रहे होंगे या घटते हैं, बढ़ते हैं या घटते हैं, लेकिन सेम डायरेक्शन में, एक ही दिशा. For example, the relation between price and supply. Then we have the negative correlation, यानी जब R correlation coefficient is less than 0, so विपरीत दिशा. That means one variable going up, the other variable will go down. Now, from your knowledge of economics, you know that usually for most of the goods which we use, as the price falls, the demand increases. Conversely, जब प्राइस बढ़ जाता है तब डिमांड घटता है. दैट मीन्स दोनों के बीच एक तो संबंध जरूर है, एंड वी नो दैट फ्रॉम योर नॉलेज ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स. यू नो फॉर सर्टन दैट प्राइस एंड डिमांड they have an inverse relationship. I hope you remember, price is inversely proportional to the demand. And in the language of correlation, we will say that price and demand, they have a negative correlation, right? I hope you are able to understand these basic concepts. Now, that's why I have also included the Hindi terms and also explaining in Hindi, because this is a technical, highly technical chapter and you must have complete understanding. After that, we will slowly, gradually move into the formula, the measures of finding out the correlation, etc. So अभी regression में जाएंगे. So second part, regression means प्रतिगमन. Through प्रतिगमन, we will try to predict the value of a variable. So that's why, as I was mentioning, that regression equations are used for prediction. भविष्यवाणी हम लोग use करते हैं for predicting the value of any particular, say, share price. The future share, the value of a particular share. Say, for example, company wants to know what will be the approximate turnover in the next 2 years. What will be the profit? What will be the market share? So, काफी सारे संख्या variables है where businesses will always be interested to know the future value, so they want to know the prediction. And this is where you can see regression is used. So अगर हम x की वैल्यू को पता कर लेते हैं, that means x is the independent variable, say advertisement expenses, and we want to know the value of the approximate value of the sales. So, and from there we will try to predict कि अगर हम लोग next year इतना amount का advertisement expenses करेंगे, marketing पे इतने खर्चे करेंगे, a particular amount, then what will be the approximate sales which we will be able to achieve? So this is possible through regression. So please note that regression helps in prediction as well. Now for regression, there are two variables. Just like correlation, we are dealing with bivariate data, two variables. So I was referring to independent variable. So if I have an equation, say y equal to ax plus b, that means here it's a linear, एक रैखिक संबंध, straight line, a equal to ax plus b. So here x क्या है? X is the independent variable. So we can call it cause and effect. It's the cause. जैसे आप देख सकते हो कि विज्ञापन खर्च, it can be termed as X. Promotion का जो expenses है, brand building, promotion, advertisement, digital promotion, whatever you call it. So say the amount is X. But the dependent variable, यानी X के value के ऊपर निर्भर करने वाला कौन सा वैल्यू है? It is y. So y is the dependent variable and here y can be total sales. कुल बिक्री कितना हुआ, टर्नओवर कितना हुआ, रेवेन्यू कितना हुआ. So you can see the relation between the advertisement expenses or sale. Here advertisement expense is denoted by X and X is the cause. It is the independent variable. और y क्या हो रहा है? Y is the approximate sales, y is the dependent variable, and y you can see is here linked with x. So x is the independent, y is the dependent variable, and the relations between x and y, of course, will be shown through a linear pattern. Right? So this is how we get the idea of prediction, Bhavishyavani, using regression coefficients, using regression equations, और as a result दो तरह के regression equation हम लोग इसको डिस्कस करेंगे. दो मुख्य रेखाएं होते हैं. फर्स्ट इज लाइन ऑफ y on x. इसका मतलब क्या है? जब x पता हो और y की भविष्यवाणी करनी है, so we will say it is a regression line of y on x. And the reverse is also true, regression line of x on y, जब y पता हो और x की prediction या x की भविष्यवाणी करनी है. So I hope you are able to understand. So therefore, correlation means, is there any relation between two variables? That is what we try to understand. And then वो relation अगर है, if they are related, अगर दोनों में सहसंबंध है, then the next point or the next step in correlation is to find out approximate ये रिश्ता की ताकत कितनी है. That means what is the strength of the relation they have. And that strength is measured by correlation coefficient, जिसका minimum value हो सकता है -1 और जिसका maximum value is +1. Okay, correct? I hope you are able to note down the points. And regression में we are dealing with two variables again. And in regression, we are trying to link the dependent and the independent variable. So independent variable अक्सर हम लोग x दिखाते हैं and y is the dependent variable, क्योंकि y का जो वैल्यू है वो x की वैल्यू के ऊपर निर्भर करता है. It depends on the value of x. And we usually show the linear relation through an equation y equal to ax plus b. So now let us see एक snapshot देखते हैं. So types of correlation, once again, please be very clear about this, because as sir mentioned in the beginning, number of questions from this chapter could come even from the theoretical part, which I had requested all the students to follow, not only for this chapter, but even the other chapters of quantitative aptitude, especially the statistics part, क्योंकि यहाँ पे बहुत सारे theoretical knowledge, formula, principle, काफी सारे हैं, सारे chapters में है. So please be very clear about that. And this is why एकदम exam preparation के angle से मैंने ये presentation बनाया है, so that you can see points and periodically we will go through the points so that slowly you get the entire understanding and you can apply that in any given situation. Exam में जो भी problems आएंगे आप उसको handle कर पाएंगे. So types of correlation, positive याद रखिए when r is greater than 0, r का maximum value है +1, और कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट जो R है उसका मिनिमम वैल्यू इज -1। दोनों वेरिएबल्स विपरीत दिशा में अगर चलते हैं, that means they might have a relation, but that is an inverse or a negative relation, जैसे प्राइस और डिमांड। सो वंस अगेन प्लीज रिमेंबर, और दोनों के बीच, दो वेरिएबल्स के बीच हो सकता है कि देयर इज नो रिलेशन। एवरी सेट ऑफ वेरिएबल्स में नॉट हैव पर्टिकुलर रिलेशन, उनमें संबंध नहीं भी हो सकती है। सो किसी का मान लीजिए हाइट, आप कितने, आपका हाइट क्या है उसके साथ आपका इंटेलिजेंस, देयर मे नॉट बी एनी डायरेक्ट रिलेशन, यानी कॉज एंड इफेक्ट तरह का कोई रिलेशन नहीं है। सिमिलरली अ पर्सन्स साइज, स्टडी मटेरियल में बहुत अच्छा सिंपल एग्जांपल है दैट द शू साइज और योर वेट एंड योर, आपका बुद्धिमत्ता, आपका आईक्यू, ये दोनों के बीच कोई संबंध नहीं है। इवन दो द हाइट ऑफ अ पर्सन इज मेजर्ड in the terms of numbers, the weight of a person is measured through numbers. A person's shoe size, आप कौन सा साइज के जूते पहनते हैं, that is also through a number, size 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. और एक इंसान की जो बुद्धिमत्ता, we talk about the intelligence, that intelligence is also measured through the IQ scale. You must have heard about Bennett scale, for example. So even for IQ, you get a score. So we have two sets of data. One data is the height of a person and the other data maybe is the IQ of the person. But in दोनों में there cannot be any relation. So it is a case of zero correlation. यानी R का वैल्यू वहां पे हो जाएगा 0. Now we see the purpose. So first step is we find if there is any relationship, height and weight, demand and supply, profit and investment, right? So say, for example, I was mentioning that how much of investment company does, and is there a link between the investment and say the revenue? Is there a direct relation between the advertisement expenses, marketing expenses, and sales, right? So this is positive, negative, and 0. So therefore, once again, correlation coefficient is from -1 to +1, and the correlation coefficient is independent of the change of origin and the scale, but it depends on the sign, जो हम लोग थोड़े बाद देखेंगे. So please remember, for every discussion we had in the earlier chapters on statistics, specifically central tendency, dispersion, even for probability distribution, we were always covering a specific point, and that is whether, say, range or quartile deviation, whether standard deviation, are they affected by a change of origin and scale? I'm sure you will remember that we had discussed each of them, and I'm sure you have noted them as well, because this is a very favorite type of question जो कि अक्सर एग्जाम में आता रहता है. So please note that in case of correlation, the correlation coefficient is independent of a change of origin and scale, but we will see it depends on the sign, right? So we will see that in a little while from now. And last but not the least, quick recap, you can see that the independent and dependent variable, please remember, independent variable, we show it as X. We usually denote it as a cause, यानी कारण क्या है. On the other hand, the dependent variable is always usually referred to as Y, the letter Y, and we will call it the effect, right? So Y is the effect, and Y can be said to be the dependent variable. X is the independent variable and the cause. So cause and effect. So this helps us in the prediction. So regression का इस्तेमाल करके we are able to predict the future. भविष्यवाणी करेंगे और हम लोग देखेंगे through some real life examples how that भविष्यवाणी, how that prediction is done. Mathematically हम लोग देखेंगे through values. So please see the diagrams once again. These are conceptual maps. Correlation, two types, positive, negative. Correlation +1 is the maximum value. We will call it perfect positive correlation if the correlation coefficient is +1. अगर correlation coefficient -1 हो, तब हम लोग कहेंगे कि ये perfectly negative correlation. यानी सहसंबंध है और वो भी perfectly negative. So, dear students, there can be number of types of correlation. Till now, we were covering some examples. We were citing examples, height and weight, then investments and profit, right? Marketing expenses and future sales. Similarly, some other types of examples I thought of sharing. Weight and blood pressure. Yes. Think from the medical perspective, doctors. So doctors always say कि आपका ब्लड प्रेशर घटाने के लिए वेट पे कंट्रोल करिए, ब्रिंग डाउन योर वेट, ब्रिंग डाउन योर ओबेसिटी लेवल, इससे आपका ब्लड प्रेशर कंट्रोल में आएगा. सो कैन वी से कि वेट इन जनरल टर्म्स, वेट बढ़ने से ब्लड प्रेशर भी बढ़ता है. दिस इज टॉकिंग अबाउट अ नॉर्मल सिनेरियो. That means we might say that weight and blood pressure might have some relation. यानी इनमें कोई कोरिलेशन या सहसंबंध हो सकता है, क्योंकि जब किसी का वजन बढ़ता है, नॉर्मली देखा गया है उनका ब्लड प्रेशर भी बढ़ता है. सो दे मूव इन द सेम डायरेक्शन. Similarly, number of hours of study and your exam marks. So if you put in the right amount of effort, if you consistently study right from day one, you follow the LVC sessions carefully, with full concentration, जी जान लगा के अगर आप प्रैक्टिस करते हो, ICAI के सारे स्टडी मटेरियल, MTP, RTP, past years questions अगर आप अध्ययन करते हो, yes, definitely you will find that the number of hours of study and your exam marks may have a positive correlation. यानी इन दोनों में एक सहसंबंध हो सकता है, और जितना स्टडीज बढ़ाएंगे, आपको सही दिशा में होनी चाहिए, बिकॉज हार्ड वर्क एंड स्मार्ट वर्क. सो अगर सही दिशा में हम लोग अपना एफर्ट्स लगाएं, इट विल रिजल्ट इन सक्सेस, एंड द सक्सेस कुड बी मेजर्ड थ्रू योर एग्जाम मार्क्स. सो इन दोनों में भी हम लोग कुछ ना कुछ कोरिलेशन हो सकता है. Advertisement expense revenue we have discussed. Sales and provision for doubtful debt. This is, I will not discuss more on this. You are all having good knowledge of accounts. You know the provision for bad debt, provision for doubtful debt. So एक company का जब sale बढ़ रहा है, they always want to know that is the bad debt linked with sales. यानी sale जितना बढ़ेगा, bad debt भी क्या उतनी ही बढ़ने की chances है, और सेल घटने से बैड डेट भी घटना चाहिए. सो दे मूव इन द सेम डायरेक्शन, एक ही दिशा में मूव करते हैं, एक ही दिशा में भागते हैं. सो दे हैव अ पॉजिटिव कोरिलेशन. सिमिलरली बैंक्स में, इन बैंक्स यू विल फाइंड, I was discussing the other day on loans, credit risk, probably in the last session on theoretical distribution. So there could be a correlation between the amount of loans given and the default on loan, right? So they have a positive correlation. Age of the car and the reliability. या फिर अगर if I give you two variable, the age of your car, आपके गाड़ी या टू व्हीलर का जो एज है, कितना सालों से आप यूज कर रहे हो, and this it is a matter of years, months. That means yeah, mathematically through figure you can definitely write. Reliability we can measure through, मान लीजिए आपका मेंटेनेंस एक्सपेंसेस, सर्विसिंग कॉस्ट कितना है. सो एज ऑफ द कार, जितना गाड़ी का एज बढ़ेगा उतना इन जनरल गाड़ी का सर्विसिंग, स्पेयर पार्ट्स, रिपेयर्स के खर्चे भी बढ़ेंगे यूजुअली. सो एज ऑफ द कार एंड द सर्विसिंग एक्सपेंडिचर, इन दोनों में सहसंबंध है, और एक ही दिशा में नॉर्मली. Please don't think of abnormal situations. In usual terms, obviously, the age of the car, as the age increases, the cost on the car, जिसे हम लोग कहते हैं ownership cost, the total ownership cost definitely increases. क्योंकि engine will become less efficient. आप देख रहे हो अभी पुराने गाड़ियों में E20 probably they are unable to use, so they have to fine tune their engine, and you can understand there will be cost. So age of the car and the servicing expenditure might have positive correlation. So this is one example. Again, social media screen time. The number of hours I spend on social media probably may not be productive. Maybe I'm just finding out what my friends are doing without any specific purpose. So social media का जो screen time जितना बढ़ेगा, एग्जाम ग्रेड इट माइट मूव इन द ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन। यानी जितना मैं सोशल मीडिया या फिर अनप्रोडक्टिव चैटिंग करूंगा, हो सकता है मेरा एग्जाम ग्रेड भी घटेगा। सोशल मीडिया में मेरा समय जो मैं बिता रहा हूं वो बढ़ रहा है, लेकिन मेरा ग्रेड घट रहा है। सो दिस इज एन एग्जांपल ऑफ इनवर्स रिलेशनशिप। That means we can say that social media screen time and exam grades might have a negative correlation. They have correlation, but in a negative. क्योंकि जब सोशल मीडिया का स्क्रीन टाइम बढ़ेगा, usually now there might be some very smart people who might spend n number of hours on Insta, on X, and different other platforms. They could be a very good say an influencer themselves. Also they might be superb in their academics and exams, but those are very few. So normal distribution sochiye, they will lie in the extreme side. Most of us who are ordinary people, if we spend too much of time chatting unproductive, it will have an inverse impact on the exam grades. And lastly, of course, capital investment or profitability. So jitna investment बढ़ता जाएगा या फिर investment बढ़ेगा, profitability ke upar it will definitely have a relation, right? Now we move to the next part. So dear students, I hope you are following. That's why we are covering the important points both in English and Hindi, so that you are absolutely clear. क्योंकि यहाँ पे बहुत सारे तकनीकी technical points and as we say in English jargon, कुछ technical terms है जो आपको एकदम बिल्कुल you must have complete understanding. Now we look at the measures of correlation, यानी मापने का तरीका, सह संबंध कैसे मापा जाए, कैसे मेजर किया जाए. So we have seen that correlation between two variables x and y, well, it is a measure of their relationship. इन दोनों में लीनियर यानी रैखिक संबंध कितना है. And you have seen correlation coefficient -1 से +1 तक चल सकता है. Now we see the four measures. First we will see scatter diagram, जो आपको एक graphically it will show you the overall direction of the correlation, यानी पॉजिटिव है या नेगेटिव है. दो वेरिएबल, दोनों में जो सह संबंध है, क्या वो एक ही दिशा में भागती है या फिर अलग. As one variable goes up, the other variable goes down, inverse. So it could be like this. See my fingers, my palm. Positive correlation, यानी एक इंक्रीज हो रहा है, दूसरा भी इंक्रीज हो रहा है, एक डिक्रीज हो रहा है, दूसरा भी डिक्रीज हो रहा है. इट इज पॉजिटिव कोरिलेशन. नेगेटिव कोरिलेशन, वंस दिस गोज अप, द अदर वेरिएबल गोज डाउन. Similarly, when the original variable goes down, you can see my right side, my finger goes up. So inverse. This is inverse movement. I hope you can understand. Inverse, right? Yani negative correlation. So yahan pe we will first see scattered diagram. Scattered diagram will tell us what is the direction. Kis disha mein correlation hai. Yani ye correlation क्या ये पॉजिटिव है या नेगेटिव है. उसके बाद कार्ल पियर्सन्स प्रोडक्ट मोमेंट, जहां पे हम लोग सिंपल सा फॉर्मूला, कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट इज गिवन बाय कोवेरियंस बिटवीन एक्स एंड वाई डिवाइडेड बाय सिग्मा एक्स मल्टीप्लाइड बाय सिग्मा वाई. यानी दोनों वेरिएबल का आपस में कोवेरियंस कितना है. And we will see an example in a few minutes from now. And you can see that now the chapter number 14, right, the marathon chapter we had on dispersion, you can see we have a direct application of standard deviation sigma x sigma y in this particular formula, yani Karl Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient. Spearman's rank correlation. So this, as I mentioned, data could be qualitative. Data is usually, we love to deal with data which is expressed in numbers, यानी जो quantitative है. लेकिन कभी कभी क्वालिटेटिव डेटा हो सकता है, ऑनेस्टी, ब्यूटी. आप सोचिए कोई रियल, जब हम लोग कहते हैं ना कि वी हैव सो मेनी नाउअडेज कॉन्टेस्ट्स ऑफ स्किल, रियलिटी शोज हम लोग कहते हैं, वहां पे हो सकता है इट्स अ फाइट और कंपटीशन ऑन स्मार्टनेस, और थिंक ऑफ से ब्यूटी कॉन्टेस्ट. सो इसको कैसे हम लोग mathematically, how can we show? So we will use Spearman's rank correlation coefficient, and the formula is 1 minus 6 sigma di square divided by n cube minus n. Finally, we have concurrent deviation, जो है, it is a quick guide on the direction of correlation. यहां से हमको कोरिलेशन का एग्जैक्ट वैल्यू नहीं मिलेगा, बट इट विल गिव यू अ क्विक कैजुअल स्टडी ऑफ द डायरेक्शन, किस दिशा में है, पॉजिटिव या नेगेटिव, ये अवश्य पता लगेगा व्हेन वी यूज द मेथड ऑफ सीसीडी, यानी कोएफिशिएंट ऑफ कॉन्करेंट डेविएशन. सो नाउ वी लुक एट द स्कैटर डायग्राम. बहुत ही सिंपल है, डायग्रामेटिक प्रेजेंटेशन. यहां से आपको दिशाएं मिलेगी. दैट मींस यू विल अंडरस्टैंड वेदर द टू वेरिएबल्स are positively correlated or are they negatively correlated. अगर उन दोनों में कोई भी correlation नहीं है, that means zero correlation, that also we can understand from the scatter diagram. So on the slide you can see the first example of scatter diagram. Height of class 12 students और उनका जो weight, the weight, please see the first diagram. Okay, so the question here is that the height of the class 12 students, and we will see the weight of the class 12 students. So if you see the correlation आप देख सकते हो is around 0.5 और ये positive correlation है. So positive correlation means it will be an approximate straight line, of course. वो बाएं तरफ from the x, from the origin, it will move upwards. So we can see approximately 0.5. It gives us only the direction. This correlation coefficient का जो value है, it is just an approximation. The second case we will see now, positive relationship between height and weight. So ये एक दूसरा क्लास का मान लीजिए, दूसरा एक group of students या group of people, their heights and weights are mapped. And we see a more, you can see dispersion between the points are less. बिंदुओं में जो गैप्स आपको दिखाई दे रहा है, फर्स्ट डायग्राम स्कैटर, प्लीज सी वी डिस्कस्ड डिस्पर्शन मींस स्कैटरनेस, राइट. सो प्लीज सी दोनों में जो अंतर है गैप्स में. इन द सेकंड डायग्राम यू हैव द गैप्स व्हिच आर क्लोजर. दिस मींस कि इन द सेकंड केस द कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट डेफिनेटली पॉजिटिव है, लेकिन कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट का जो वैल्यू, इट इज हायर देन व्हाट वी हैव इन द फर्स्ट डायग्राम. सो वी हैव अप्रोक्सीमेट 0.80. द नेक्स्ट वन 0.4 पॉजिटिव कोरिलेशन, लेकिन 0.4 अगेन थ्रू द स्कैटर डायग्राम. नाउ वी सी द लास्ट वन ऑन दिस लोअर पार्ट ऑफ द स्लाइड, परफेक्ट नेगेटिव कोरिलेशन का एक एग्जांपल फ्रॉम द स्कैटर डायग्राम. यू कैन सी द रिलेशन बिटवीन प्राइस एंड डिमांड. So students, please be clear from these scatter diagrams कि positive correlation normally graphically when it is shown, it will be a approximate straight line or the points could be scattered, but the overall trend you can easily understand. You will see कि वो बाएं तरफ origin से it will move up towards the right hand side. That is positive correlation. Now we see price and demand. So this obviously we know as the price increases, demand falls, and as price जब घटती है तब demand बढ़ जाता है. So price and demand will have inverse relation, and therefore we have a correlation coefficient -1. लेकिन please note करिए कि यहां पे the orientation of the straight line is opposite. Please see the trend line जो रेखाएं हैं नंबर 2, नंबर 3 के साथ, ये लास्ट वाला जो है प्राइस और डिमांड, प्लीज सी द लाइन ओरिएंटेशन हैज चेंज्ड, राइट. लास्ट वन ऑन द स्लाइड, नो कोरिलेशन, यानी जीरो कोरिलेशन. यहां पे क्या होगा, IQ एंड हाइट. सो द IQ एंड द हाइट ऑफ पीपल हैव बीन मैप्ड एंड वी सी इट्स लाइक अ सर्कल एंड बेसिकली वी सी R equal to 0. Here what we see is this trend line. It is absolutely parallel to the x-axis. That means there is no correlation. It is shown through a horizontal line. Horizontal, right? There is no curvature, there is no slope. इसमें कोई slope या intercept नहीं है. बिल्कुल horizontal, यानी it is parallel to the x-axis, right? We are explaining each and every point through diagrams, both in English and Hindi, so that you can exactly relate and note down. Now we come to Pearson's product moment correlation. We are on slide number 6, and we will now see the Spearman's Carl Pearson's product moment correlation. So this is through a formula, and definitely the कार्ल पियर्सन्स प्रोडक्ट मोमेंट कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट, ये एक बाइवेरिएट डेटा, यानी जो दो वेरिएबल हम लोग एग्जांपल ले रहे थे उन दोनों के बीच सह संबंध उसको मेजर करता है. एंड हियर वी सी दैट द फॉर्मूला इज गिवन बाय Carl Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient. For linear relationship, it is given by the relation, the formula is covariance xy divided by the product of the individual standard deviation of x and y, right? And covariance क्या है हम लोग देख सकते हैं on the left hand side. Covariance means x minus sigma x or y minus x minus x bar, sorry, and y minus y bar. ये दोनों का जो प्रोडक्ट, summation of the product divided by the number of observations. So this is what is covariance, and Carl Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient is equal to the covariance between two variables x and y divided by the product of their individual standard deviation. Okay? And when you get a problem, we will see now, we will move and check a particular practical problem. You can see here, once we simplify the formula, what we get is the product moment correlation coefficient is shown by covariance xy divided by sigma x into sigma y. But in one step, if you want to solve the problem, this equals n sigma xy minus sigma x sigma y divided by what you can see on the denominator. So this is familiar. This denominator में जो आप देख सकते हो, ये जो yellow color मैंने किया है, you can see it is nothing but the formula of the standard deviation. ये chapter 14 में we have discussed in detail with number of calculations. This is the individual formula of standard deviation of x and the standard deviation of y. So now we will see that the correlation coefficient, which is measured through the Pearson's product moment correlation, उसका value क्या है? It is covariance xy divided by the product of the individual standard deviation of x and y. So this is how you get R. R is the correlation coefficient. अगर R को हम लोग square करें, if you just raise R to the power 2, what we get is called the coefficient of determination. So please keep a note of this, because this formula will be very handy for you, very helpful for you when you get problems, because questions keep coming also on the coefficient of determination. और थोड़े देर बाद हम लोग देखेंगे the understanding of explained variance and unexplained variance. But for the time being, please remember Carl Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient, which is shown by R, equals covariance between x and y divided by sigma x into sigma y, and the coefficient of determination is equal to R square, where R is the correlation coefficient. I hope it's clear, you're following. Now we see the last property, and that is what we see. Question is regarding the shift in the origin and the scale. So first property, let us quickly see, which we discussed, कि correlation coefficient का कोई unit नहीं होता, because ultimately it's a pure number. ये एक शुद्ध it's a particular numerical value, pure number. Therefore, it is not having any unit like kilograms or centimeter or rupees, right? Nothing of that sort. It's a pure number. And we will see that the coefficient of correlation, x और y के बीच जो coefficient है, and if x and y are shifted through a change of origin and a change of scale, अभी हम लोग देखेंगे कि उस पे क्या असर पड़ेगा. So very important part, because several type of questions from this particular property has come in the past year's exam. So please see this. The coefficient of correlation remains invariant under a change of origin and or scale. Yani origin or scale, neither of them will have an impact on the particular coefficient of correlation. However, we will see that it is affected by a change of sign. So in the first example, we see here that we have two variables, x and y, and we are now creating two variables u and b. U kya hai? U is equal to x minus a by b. Here a is the shift in the origin, or scale kya hai? Scale is shown by b. V is equal to y minus c by d. Here the shift in origin is c, and what is d? D is the shift in the scale. Or you can call it the intercept, for example. Now when a and c, you can see a and c kya hai? A and c are the origins, and we can see that b and d are the respective scale. The correlation coefficient of xy, that is shown by rxy, please see the relation and please remember this formula. Keep it noted in your just in your exercise copy, your study books and all. Rxy is equal to b into d divided by the absolute value of b and d multiplied by ruv. That means u or v ka jo correlation coefficient hoga, we will multiply that by the product of b and d and divide it by the absolute value of b and d, which means कि अगर b और d में कोई sign का difference होगा, then the sign of rxy and ruv will also change. So b और d यानी scale factor जो है उनका अगर sign में कोई भी change है, that means say b is positive, d is negative, or b is negative, d is positive. In that case, rxy will be equal to ruv, but their sign will change. Their absolute value will remain the same. Say the value is 0.8. लेकिन अगर rxy plus 0.8 है, then ruv will become minus 0.8. Sign will change. So this is what you need to remember. Now we see a simple example. And this is from the ICAI study material, chapter 17. We are given certain values and we have to find out the Carl Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient, यानी R निर्धारण करना है. आपको दिया गया है n equal to 10, that is total number of observations. X and Y are the two types of variable, और ये दोनों का जो distribution, we will call it bivariate, द्विचर data. So यहाँ पे the formula, as I mentioned, n into sigma xy minus sigma x sigma y divided by denominator में आप जो देख रहे हो, it is बिल्कुल standard deviation वाला formula. So n sigma x square minus sigma x whole square, इसका square root multiplied by the same for y. So ultimately we are given x and y. So what we will find out is, we have to find out definitely sigma x कितना है, sigma y कितना है, sigma x square कितना होगा, sigma y square कितना होगा, and sigma xy. So 5 important data: sigma x, sigma y, sigma x square, sigma y square, and sigma xy. यानी x और y के बीच जो जो पॉसिबल रिलेशन आप सोच सकते हो, सिग्मा x हो गया, सिग्मा y दोनों का स्क्वायर, और सिग्मा xy. And from this data, you can see n. Just have a look at the lower part of the slide. I hope you can see here that in this particular numerical, आप देख सकते हो कि ये जो n है 10. उसके बाद क्या है? सिग्मा xy. सिग्मा xy एग्जाम आपका ये प्रॉब्लम में इट इज गिवन. सिग्मा xy यू कैन सी 220 दिया हुआ है. उसके बाद क्या है? माइनस सिग्मा x इंटू सिग्मा y. सिग्मा x इज गिवन 40, सिग्मा y 50. तो आपका न्यूमरेटर बन गया n मल्टीप्लाइड बाई सिग्मा xy माइनस सिग्मा x इंटू सिग्मा y. आपका न्यूमरेटर बन गया अकॉर्डिंग टू द फॉर्मूला ऑन द लेफ्ट हैंड साइड. डिनोमिनेटर में आएंगे. डिनोमिनेटर में क्या है? n इंटू सिग्मा x स्क्वायर. Standard deviation the formula. So we have put n for 10 into sigma x square. Sigma x square problem में दिया हुआ है 200 minus sigma x का whole square. Sigma x कितना है? 40. So 40 whole square multiplied by same process. अभी y के लिए करना होगा. So you have n into sigma y square. Sigma y square is given in the problem. It is 220. Sorry, sigma y square is 262. So 10 into 262 minus sigma y उसका whole square. Sigma y is given 50, right? So we are getting 0.91. There is one question, what is unit free measure? So now I hope you can see, all the students can get the right perspective, which I was repeating, that correlation coefficient का कोई भी unit नहीं होता, unit free है. So I hope the students who have requested me to explain, I have already explained for last 10-15 minutes. I'm sure you are following. So इसका कोई, there is no unit. ना तो ये kgs में आएगा, ना तो ये centimeter, because ultimately what are we doing? We are dividing in the numerator certain values by certain values, और ऊपर का जो numerator उसका unit होगा, नीचे का जो numerator उसका भी same unit होगा. So the units are getting cancelled out. Ultimately ये एक ratio है, correlation coefficient एक ratio है, ratio का कोई unit नहीं होता. Ratio could be expressed in percentage, but a ratio which is the, say for example, a fraction, that means it is the net output once you are dividing a particular number by another number. And it can be, just imagine, say it is like, let's put it this way, the height of two people, say first person is 5 feet tall. Okay, let me convert it into inches. So 60 inches, right? One foot is 12 inches, 60 inches, and the other person is say 6 feet. That means 72 inches. दोनों का height, please note, दोनों का height, they have a unit. It is measured in inches. But if I ask you कि first person A, इनका height है 60 inch, second person B, इनका height है 72 inch. दोनों का ratio क्या है? A divided by B अगर आप करोगे, what will you do? You are actually dividing 60 inches, क्योंकि A का height है 60 inch, B का height है 72. 62 inch by 72 inch. आप divide कर रहे हो. दोनों का unit है. It is measured in centimeters, in this case inches. But ultimately जो ratio निकलेगा 60 by 72. So you divide it by 12, you get 5 by 6. ये जो 5 by 6, 5 by 6 आया, क्या इसका कोई यूनिट होगा? Will I write 5 by 6 inches? No, क्योंकि it is nothing but a pure शुद्ध संख्या. It is a pure number. So I hope now all one or two students had written about, they didn't understand unit free measure. I hope now you have got the clear idea. Okay, so this is why the correlation coefficient is not having any unit, यानी इसे हम लोग unit free measure कहेंगे. And in this example, it is 0.91. We know the maximum value of correlation coefficient is +1. So यहाँ पे value है 0.91. So our conclusion is कि x और y के बीच एक अच्छा, एक काफी गहरा संबंध, I can say, सह संबंध, good amount of positive correlation, क्योंकि ये +0.91 आया. Right, so now we proceed to the next point, and we will see, we have done the discussion of the Carl Pearson's product moment correlation. Another example I will show you here, that is relationship between anxiety and exam score. So exam se pehle aksar we have stress, anxiety, any exam. So this is for psychologists, they have tried to establish कि क्या एक human being, a normal human being, the anxiety, the stress we go through. अब anxiety stress को हम लोग numerically हम लोग दर्शा सकते हैं. We can show it numerically. We can create a table to show the anxiety score. And a psychologist can easily do it. And exam marks. So just this is just for academic purpose. So anxiety scores are given, test scores are given. ये दोनों you can see bivariate data है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे दो simultaneously at the same time we are handling two different sets of data. One is X जो anxiety है, the other is Y जो कि आपका test score है. We know the formula of product moment, Carl Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient. जैसे हम लोग पिछले एग्जाम्पल में देख रहे थे, न्यूमरेटर में क्या आएगा, n into sigma xy minus sigma x into sigma y, एंड नीचे जो आएगा डिनोमिनेटर, बेसिकली स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन. यहाँ पे सेम थिंग वी हैव डन. सिग्मा x निकाल लिए हम लोग. प्लीज सी, प्लीज कॉन्सेंट्रेट एंड फोकस, यू विल गेट इट एब्सोल्युटली क्लियर. y जो टेस्ट स्कोर है, इसका सिग्मा y हम लोग कंप्यूट कर लिए, then x square for each of them, 10 square is 100, 8 square is 64 and so on. So you can see sigma x square we have got 230, similarly sigma y square. Finally x y का जो प्रोडक्ट है, हर जो रो है, अब देखिए x और y का प्रोडक्ट 10 into 2 is 20, 8 into 3 is 24 and so on. So we have got sigma xy equal to 129. Now we are putting all these individual values in the formula which is to be used for the product moment correlation coefficient. Or what are we getting? We are getting a correlation coefficient value. कितना value है देखिए, minus 0.94. So in the first example, we had taken a case of strong positive correlation. We got plus 0.9 something. यहाँ पे है minus 0.94. That means the conclusion is that anxiety and test score में सहसंबंध तो जरूर है, लेकिन ये जो दिशा है इनका, जब एंजाइटी बढ़ जाता है तब टेस्ट का परफॉर्मेंस, आपका मार्क्स घट जाता है. जब एंजाइटी घटता है तभी आपका मार्क्स अच्छे होंगे, यानी मार्क्स बढ़ेंगे. यानी इनमें से जब एंजाइटी बढ़ता है मार्क्स गिरेगा. सी दिस मूवमेंट. ओके, प्लीज सी, आई होप इट्स विजिबल टू यू. So this movement is inverse movement, yani they are related, but they have a negative or an indirect strong correlation because it is a minus sign, right? So I'm sure you have followed and you have understood. Now we move to the last but not the least very important question. पहले देख लीजिए जो मैंने लिखा है यहाँ पे, change of scale. Sir briefed you, advised you in the very beginning that ये change of scale जो हम लोग देख रहे थे कि in the case of correlation, the coefficient of correlation will be independent. It will not be affected due to a change of origin or due to a change in the scale. But yes, it will be affected so far as the sign is concerned. Plus sign या minus sign. So please see correlation coefficient. जो हम लोग बात करते हैं origin मतलब क्या? जोड़ना, घटाना, ऐड करना या नेगेटिव माइनस करना, इसे हम लोग कहते हैं ओरिजिन. स्केल मतलब क्या है? गुणा या भाग, राइट? चेंज ऑफ स्केल. सो ये दोनों का बदलाव अगर है, यानी जोड़ने घटाने का एक सिचुएशन दिया हुआ है और गुण और भाग हो रहा है, यानी देयर इज अ चेंज ऑफ बोथ ओरिजिन एंड स्केल. दो चेंजेस हो रहा है, लेकिन दो बदलाव आ रहा है, लेकिन इससे कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट पूरा स्वतंत्र है, यानी इट इज इंडिपेंडेंट ऑफ एनी चेंज इन द ओरिजिन और द चेंज इन द स्केल. हालांकि अगर स्केल की मल्टीप्लायर्स के साइन विपरीत होंगे, जो मैं पहले बता रहा था, सो स्केल मल्टीप्लायर x माइनस a बाई b, y माइनस c बाई d, जो नीचे का डिनोमिनेटर वही है स्केल. अगर दोनों का साइन सेम है तब कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं. दैट मीन्स इन दैट केस द कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट बिटवीन x एंड y एंड द कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट बिटवीन u एंड v विल बी सेम. बट अगर दोनों का साइन बदल जाएगा, that means if one of the multiplier is positive and the other multiplier, that means the scale factor is negative, then the correlation coefficient between xy and uv value same आएगा, लेकिन sign बदल जाएगा. Same sign will become opposite. So let us see this very, very, very important example from the ICAI study material. आपके सामने आ गया example 17.8. Beautiful example, comprehensive. Please check and link it with what is written on the slide. So यहाँ पे बहुत सारे numerical मतलब रेखाएं, यानी straight line equation is given. 2u plus 3x plus 4 and 4v plus 16y plus 11. You can see, I think 4 examples are given. And ये बताया गया है question में that the correlation coefficient between xy, that is rxy, is 0.8. We have to find out the correlation coefficient between u and v in each of these 4 cases. Very important part, मैंने यहाँ पे लिखा है कि one of the most important ICAI MCQ, जितना मेरा ज्ञान है, very limited knowledge, whatever I have, I could little bit understand that one question on change of origin, change of scale may be expected in the exam. इसीलिए इस पे मैं emphasis या importance डालने का कोशिश कर रहा हूं. I hope I have your attention, I have your concentration. Please see, RXY is always equal to RUV provided दोनों scale factor are of the same sign. But RXY and RUV यानी x और y के बीच का कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट और u और v के बीच का कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट अपोजिट साइन बन जाएंगे कब? अगर b और d में अपोजिट साइन हो गया. Let us see the first case. गौर करिए, first case 2u plus 3x plus 4 equal to 0. So here it can be written as u is written as minus 2 plus minus 3 by 2x. Similarly, v has been written. Please note, यहां पे scale factor क्या है? Please see. b is minus 3 by 2. Right? So we write u as x minus a by b and v as y minus c by d. Right? So here b and d are the scale factors. बहुत खास important material for questions. So यहाँ पे B और D दोनों का साइन सेम है. They are of the same sign. Therefore, please note, आंसर क्या है? आंसर है कि correlation coefficient between x and y, that is RXY, will be exactly equal to RUV. अब RXY का correlation coefficient 0.8 बताया गया है. Since in the first case, please note in the first example example 1, यहां पे क्या है कि the sign of the scale factors b और d का जो sign है दोनों negative है, यानी they are of the same sign. Therefore, the correlation coefficient between RUV will be exactly same both in terms of magnitude and in terms of direction. So RUV will also be equal to 0.8. That means RUV, RXY बिल्कुल same है, same to same जो हम लोग कहते हैं. Now let us see second case. 2u minus 3x plus 4 equal to 0. 4v plus 16y plus 11 is 0. So my dear students, kindly see second case. यहाँ पे what do you see? What do you find? Let us see the analysis. In the second case, once you transpose the equation, b का वैल्यू होता है 3 by 2, that means positive 3 by 2 plus 3 by 2, whereas if you look at d जो कि दूसरा scale factor, it assumes the value of minus 4. देखिए, so we are writing u as minus 2 plus 3 by 2 into x and v is written as minus 11 by 4 plus of minus 4y. So here y जो है इसको हम लोग क्या करेंगे? Here we have basically we are writing it as a scale factor and this a and b. So now we find, sorry, b and d. b is getting the scale factor 3 by 2, positive 3 by 2, but we find d is equal to minus 4. They are of opposite sign. So according to the important property of the coefficient of correlation, now RUV will have an opposite sign of RXY. So correlation coefficient between RXY is 0.8. So the correlation coefficient of RUV will be minus 0.8. Sign change हो जाएगा. Why? Because here B and D are having opposite sign. B is positive, D is negative. So dear students, proceeding in the same manner, you can easily find out what will be the correlation coefficient in the case of 3 and 4. So 3 का केस में आप देखेंगे that both are in the same, both B and D, they have the same sign when it comes to the scale factor. नतीजा क्या है? RUV is equal to 0.8. That means it is exactly identical to the correlation coefficient between RXY, x और y का correlation coefficient, वो भी 0.8 positive है. यहाँ पे भी in the third example, the third scenario, the correlation coefficient between u and v will be positive and of course same magnitude, same value. लेकिन चौथा जो example है, fourth question में, it will again be different. The signs of b and d are different. So here also the correlation coefficient between u and v will now have the opposite sign So the value in the fourth case will be minus 0.8. Right? So please review these examples from the study material and once again go through the discussion we had in the last few slides when I was specifically explaining the impact of change of scale and the change of origin. Along with that, not only the change of scale or the origin, but if there is a change in the scale factors with regard to the sign, plus or minus sign, then it will have a direct impact on the correlation coefficient between these two sets of variables. With this, we move to the Spearman's rank correlation coefficient, which is known as the RCC in brief. And we are on slide number 10 currently, and we are moving ahead with RCC discussion. So this is usually used rank correlation coefficient. So ये अक्सर formula is very simple. Rank correlation coefficient. This is used when we have some rankings done by judges. So, for example, the communication skill of two individuals. Communication skill is very subjective. ये qualitative है. But इसको quantitative format में it can be given a number. Maybe through rank, maybe through a score. So therefore, in these type of cases, the Spearman's rank correlation coefficient formula is used. Simple सा formula आप देख सकते हो 1 minus 6 into sigma di square divided by n into n square minus 1. So we can write denominator can be written as n cube minus n. So this is the RCC and di means you know the difference. So rank correlation coefficient also will have a range between minus 1 and plus 1. So the highest value it can assume is plus 1 और जो न्यूनतम जो एकदम minimum value वो है minus 1. And we know of course that जब R plus 1 होगा that means दोनों जो rank है यानी दो individual का score दिया हुआ है ranking दिया हुआ है that means ranks will move in the same direction. That means these two individuals the ranking which is given maybe on intelligence, maybe on power, maybe on communication skills, maybe beauty contest, whatever be the feature, whatever be the attribute, that means there is a perfect correlation. Agar R minus 1 hai, then as we have seen earlier, jo hum log, in the earlier case of product moment correlation, we saw that jab R is equal to minus 1, that means we will say that they are definitely correlated, but in the negative opposite sense, inverse correlation. And agar R0 hai, no correlation as we have seen earlier. So what we do here, let us take an example. We will take an example and see. Once again, please note the formula. The correlation coefficient, Spearman's RCC is equal to 1 minus 6 into sigma di square divided by n into n square minus 1, जहां पे di क्या है differences of every rank उसका square and n मतलब number of observations. So now we see the practical example. From the ICAI study material, compute the coefficient of rank correlation between sales and advertisement. Exactly the example which we were referring to in the beginning of the discussion. So you can see it is the bivariate data, द्विचर data है ये, क्योंकि दो sets of data हम लोग simultaneously उस पे काम कर रहे हैं. So I hope now all students are clear about the difference between univariate data and bivariate. ये bivariate है. Those two sets of data जो कि vary कर रहा है आपस में. So sales and advertisement. So what we have done here is according to the principles of the rank correlation coefficient, ranking दिया गया है यानी sales में highest score को हम लोग first rank देंगे, second highest को second rank देंगे. In this way we will go to the lowest rank जिसको सबसे rank wise अगर देखा जाए जो lowest sales जो है they will get the rank 8 in this example. ये 8 साल का है. There are, if you see 8 figures, 8 variables are given both for sales as well as for advertisement. So now please see on the in the table you can see XI. First variable क्या है XI? Sales. So sales has been mapped. Next column पे गौर करिए advertisement यानी जो second variable. ठीक है, अभी आई एम श्योर कि सब सारे स्टूडेंट्स को एकदम क्लैरिटी मिल चुका होगा कि बाइवेरिएट क्यों कहते हैं, किसे कहते हैं, राइट। बाइवेरिएट द्विचर डेटा बोलने से अक्सर थोड़ा सा समझने में तकलीफ होता है, बट नाउ आई एम श्योर यू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड बाइवेरिएट थ्रू नंबर ऑफ प्रैक्टिकल एग्जांपल्स. आई एम श्योर थ्रू द डिस्कशन वी आर हैविंग you are getting the confidence and the clarity that why it is bivariate और exactly correlation coefficient कैसे compute होता है. Product moment हो गया and now rank correlation. So दोनों जो variables, set of variables है, so we are first doing the ranking. So XI क्या है? आपका sales. Sales में top rank किसको मिला है? 7th observation, 95th वाले जो sale है उसको first rank मिला है. Now let us see advertisement. Advertisement, let us see the highest score in Y, that is advertisement is 8. So the 7th person. So we have got, we have given first rank. In this way, highest score करने वाले को उस हिसाब से rank दिया गया है, and then we can see that DI is calculated. यानी difference between X and Y. So रैंक जो है XI का रैंक यू हैव सीन एंड Y का रैंक. XI is the rank for sales and YI is the rank for the advertisement. From here we are getting the difference XI minus YI. और अभी क्या करना है? For each of the differences, just find out the square. So you are getting DI square. Right? Good to see some of the students are calculating, they're doing the problem very good. Now let us see formula क्या है? Formula is simple. 1 minus 6 into sigma di square divided by n into n square minus 1. काफी simple formula. और ये जैसे I'm sure you are understanding, you are noting down, and slowly you are getting the grip on the chapter, and you can see that इसमें कोई भी complication नहीं है. Simple the formula. I am just getting sigma di square. N क्या है? 8 है, we know, and sigma d square. If you see the total sigma d square is coming to 4. So if I put the values, we are getting approximately 0.95. Final comment on this numerical case study क्या है? कि there is a high positive value of rank correlation coefficient, and it वो क्या दर्शाता है? High value of rank correlation coefficient means what? It means that there is a very good amount of agreement, understanding, relationship between sales and advertisement. That means sale value और advertisement value, ये दोनों में सह संबंध काफी जोरदार है, काफी ताकतवर है, काफी strong है. So dear students, from this concept I am sure you will now be able to understand कि दोनों में तालमेल क्या है, संबंध क्या है, उसका गहराई क्या है, how strong is the relation once you find it out. Now if the company's management person tells you that for the next year, if we spend X amount for advertisement, can you tell me what will be the projection या predicted value of sales? I hope you are able to understand this. क्योंकि ऑलरेडी सेल्स और एडवर्टाइजमेंट के बीच का रिलेशनशिप वी हैव फाउंड आउट. दोनों में काफी गहरा ताल्लुकात है और दोनों का सह संबंध पॉजिटिव है. इट इज 0.95 एज पर द एग्जाम्पल. दैट मीन्स 95% of the cases they have a strong understanding. From this relation, in regression, जैसे हम लोग आगे बढ़ेंगे in the next few minutes, you will see regression में हम लोग क्या करेंगे? We will now try to predict. इसीलिए मैं पहले कहा था कि इसे हम लोग भविष्यवाणी कहते हैं, prediction. So once we know the value of advertisement expenses, जो कि होगा आपका independent variable, जो X के हिसाब से दर्शाया जाएगा, जो cause हम लोग कहते हैं, the effect will be what? Effect is sales. So in this way, prediction is done. This is how projection is done. And this is the heart of any predictive AI tool. हम लोग heart की बात कर रहे हैं, एक्सेंस की बात कर रहे हैं. Right? So the base, the structure of AI is this, is the relationship between data. और कुछ नहीं है. So if you understand statistics, if you understand the science or the relationship between data, then getting a knowledge on data science or AI is not at all difficult, because AI, machine learning, deep learning, everything is based on relationship between data. So at the heart, please see, is correlation. Of course, you will later on, in case you study higher levels, you will find there is something called time series data, auto regression. That is outside our curriculum, but you will see the whole world of strategic management, business forecasting. And nowadays, of course, we use the term AI, right? So it is all nothing but the base, the fundamental is this, statistics, right? Now we will look at the next example, and we will now move on to see example 1. Compute the correlation coefficient between X and Y from the following data. So in this example, number 1 on the slide, we are on slide 12. So you can see that यहाँ पे we are given sigma xy, sigma x square, sigma y square, and n. So from there, you know the formula. This is the product moment rank correlation coefficient, यानी ये कार्ल पियर्सन वाला formula है. It is given by n into sigma xy minus sigma x multiplied by sigma y. नीचे क्या होगा? नीचे रहेगा square root of sigma x square minus sigma x whole square multiplied by square root of sigma y square minus sigma y whole square. So ekdam make it mentally. I always request all my students, mental mapping. So ये आपका conceptual base अगर आपका पूरा system, आपका पूरा memory में आ गया, brain में आ गया, then it is very suitable, easy for you to solve any type of problems. And this is a very easy problem because all the values are given. आपको केवल formula में apply करना है. We see the next one for a group of 8 students. Please see the sum of the differences. Okay, now we will see here. This question, if you see, is on rank correlation coefficient. We have the RCC. So this is on the RCC question, and let us see what we are getting. So this is 1 minus 6 into sigma di square divided by n cube minus n. All the values are given. A very similar question has come in the previous year's exam. What you see, example 2, even example 1, right? So you have sigma di square is given. The sum of squares of the difference in the ranks of mathematics statistics, यानी sigma di square आपको दिया हुआ है. There are 8 students, यानी n is 8. So what else is required? You can easily find out. We get 0.4. The third question, exam oriented problem, which I have selected for our analysis. So we move ahead and see the third one, example 3. For a number of towns, the coefficient of rank correlation between the people living below the poverty line and increase in the population is 0.5. So यहाँ पे आपको क्या दिया हुआ है? You have been given the rank correlation coefficient, RCC is given. If the sum of the squares of the difference in the ranks is given as 82.5, so we have to find the number of towns. Simple. So it's like an equation. You know, an equation means you have some unknowns. So here you have been given certain data. You have one unknown. So you are given sigma di square. You also know the coefficient of rank correlation coefficient. So this is the Spearman's rank correlation coefficient, and therefore we are given 0.5, which is equal to 1 minus 6 into sigma di square. Denominator में जो n है, if you see n into n square minus 1, n ka value we have to find out. So I am sure this is also easy for all of you. The fourth case, classic case, where we see some mistakes in the computation. Rank correlation has been done, उसमें कोई गलत observation was included, so इसमें हमको we have to modify. So question number 4, please see, while computing the rank correlation between profits and investment, what has happened? Let us see. The difference in the rank for a year was taken as 7 instead of 5 by mistake, and therefore the value of the rank correlation coefficient was found to be 0.8. यानी आपका RCC has 0.8. लेकिन इसमें one of the pair जो difference हम लोग निकाले हैं for one particular difference, the difference in rank was taken as 7 instead of 5. by mistake. मतलब यहाँ पे एक गलत जो डिफरेंस है वो है 7, but it should have been 5. So what do we do here? So first we can see that we have to replace the wrong difference by the correct difference. यहाँ पे wrong difference is 7 and it should be replaced by 5. So we know the number of years, n is 10 here. We are given the value of the rank correlation coefficient, which is 0.8. So applying the value 0.8, we are now getting sigma di square. और ये जो sigma di square है जो we are finding out, it is actually wrong because sigma di square equal to 33. This contains one of the difference we have taken is 7, which is wrong. It should be replaced by 5. So galat difference is 7 and the correct difference is what? 5. Sigma di square is 33. So यहां से हम लोग को करना क्या है? गलत जो डिफरेंस था उसको हटाना होगा और जो सही डिफरेंस उसको ऐड करना पड़ेगा. So if you see the difference, the total sigma di square is 33. We will remove the wrong difference, but not the wrong difference only, the square of the wrong difference. Wrong difference is 7. 7 square, 49, we will remove. So from the total of 33, we are subtracting 7 square, which is 49. But now we have to add back the di square for 5, because 5 is the right observation, right difference. So therefore, you can see the adjusted or the corrected sigma di square now comes to 33 minus 7 square plus 5 square, which gives you 9. And now last step, you can see rectified RCC, we are calculating 0.95. This is also a very interesting question, a nice question and simple for calculation and conceptually also, I'm sure everyone has got it correct. We proceed now to the last part and we see the CCD, the coefficient of concurrent deviation. So we see the formula is here, RC. So normally coefficient of concurrent deviation is used when we are not serious about the magnitude of the correlation of the two variables. We want to know overall whether these two variables have positive or negative correlation. So coefficient of concurrent deviation gives us the trend, but it may not give us the exact value. Exact value we are getting either from the Carl Pearson's product moment correlation formula या फिर the Spearman's rank correlation coefficient. Lekin this is a very important part of our curriculum, CCD, and we will see here that it is used for a quick look, a quick understanding of the direction of change between two sets of variables. So the formula is like this, plus minus square root of plus minus 2c minus m by m. वहां पे m क्या है? m है total number of pairs of deviation. And always please remember that total number of deviation जो होगा pair of data, क्योंकि bivariate है, x और y तो आएगा. So दोनों में जो deviation हम लोग निकालेंगे, if the total number of observation is n, then the total number of deviation जो m से हम लोग दिखा रहे हैं, m will be equal to n minus 1. Okay, so that is the basic logic. And C means the number of concurrent deviation jahan pe both variables are moving in the same direction. Yani either both variable are going up, x बढ़ रहा है, y बढ़ रहा है, same sign, or x reducing, y reducing. Again, we have same sign. This is what we will do. And we will see the classic example from the ICAI study material, which will make you complete, you will have complete understanding. 17.15, please see, again, we have bivariate data, price and demand. Okay, so we have year-wise data. How many years are there? Let us see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years are there. Yani n is equal to 8. That means 8 साल के लिए pair-wise information is given. Pair means two people, two objects. So there are how pairs है 8 pairs, but डेविएशन हम लोग निकालेंगे, we will leave the first pair. Second onwards we'll find the number of deviation. यानी यहाँ पे जो आप देख सकते हो, the value of m, that means the total number of pairs of deviation will be 7. Now please concentrate on 17.10 table. You can see the price is given and the sign of the deviation. Please see, price is the first variable. First year we have 25, second year 28, यानी price has increased. So first deviation क्या है? Plus है. 28 से 30, 1991 to 1992, the price increases from 28 to 30. फिर से positive movement, so positive sign. Please see. 93 में देखिए, the price has become 23, यानी from 1992 to 1993, there is a negative movement. So now the deviation is negative. So you can see the coefficient of concurrent deviation, as the name suggests, ये पूरा डेविएशन पे आधारित है. डेविएशन माने क्या है? डेविएशन का अर्थ यहां पे है द साइन, चेंज इन द साइन. इस तरह से आप देख सकते हो फॉर एक्स, द फर्स्ट got 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, total number of years is 8, number of deviation will be always n minus 1. That means in this case 8 minus 1. So इस तरह से we are doing the deviation for x. Now come to y. Y क्या है? Y is demand. It's a bivariate, द्विचर. So we have a list of y. All the observations right from 1990 till 1997. Similarly for y, please see first year the demand is 35. Okay. We are actually starting with the deviation only from the second year. क्योंकि second year onwards ही हम लोग deviation mapping कर पाएंगे, क्योंकि deviation हम लोग map करेंगे किसके साथ? With the first year. So first year का value देखने के बाद ही हम लोग second year का deviation निकाल पाएंगे, because the second year value either is more than the first year value or it is less. It could also be equal. So therefore here you can see for demand, first year 35, second year 34. तुरंत देखिए deviation का sign minus हो गया. 1991 से 92 में देखिए demand 34 से 35 हो गया, so plus sign हो गया. In this way we are doing all the sign deviation for the second variable जो कि demand है, यानी y. Now the last column, product of the deviation, A or B. A first column, first row कुछ नहीं है. You come to the second row for 1991. Sign of the deviation, price का deviation positive है, लेकिन demand का deviation minus है. Plus into minus gives you minus. 1992 का देखिए, the sign of deviation for the price is plus, and the sign of the deviation for the demand is also plus. Plus and plus gives you plus. So finally the product is plus. 1993 में चलेंगे, you can see the price के जो यहाँ पे column है, you can see there is a negative deviation, minus. Demand का भी आप देखेंगे, there is a negative. Minus and minus gives you plus. In this way, product column, if you check, you will find how many pairs of deviation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 pairs of deviation has been considered. अब उनमें how many deviations are there which are ultimately, C क्या है? C is the number of concurrent deviations where both variables move in the same direction. That means both positive or both negative. इस तरह का situation केवल दो ही situation, दो केस में आप देख सकते हो in the table in front of you on the slide. For specifically for the year 1992, you can see price movement also is plus and demand movement is also plus, and therefore the product is plus. And for 1993, you can see the price has gone down and the demand also shows a negative sign. That means ये लोग same दिशा में, ये दो variable एक ही दिशा में move कर रहे हैं, and therefore minus minus gives you plus. That means here we get C, yani number of pairs of concurrent deviation is 2. From the formula, we now apply it. You can see in the place of C, we will write 2, and in the place of M, it is 7. क्योंकि सारे जो यहाँ पे observation है, total observation is 8, and the number of pairs of deviation, I explained, it will always be 1 less than the number of observation. यहाँ पे total number of observation 8 है, जाहिर सी बात है कि number of pairs of deviation will be 7. इस तरह से we have found out the value which is minus 0.65, and therefore the conclusion is that there is a negative correlation between price and demand. So this is the last and but not the least, of course, important tool or measure of the measures when we talk about correlation. Now we look at the last is spurious correlation. So here we find there are some cases where you may get certain casual correlation between two variables, लेकिन ये दोनों वेरिएबल के बीच कोई साइंटिफिक या कोई लॉजिकल संबंध हम लोग सोच नहीं पाएंगे. For example, there could be a positive correlation between the production of rice and iron in India. Rice or iron. Rice is something we eat. Iron is used for industrial purposes, construction purposes. हो सकता है कि these two are showing some movement in the same direction. Demand for rice increasing, demand for iron also increasing. Demand for rice going down, demand for iron also going down. It might exhibit some sort of correlation, but this may not be due to a cause and effect relation. It could be due to the effect of a third variable, maybe time, samaya. You might be knowing time is the fourth dimension. So therefore, the correlation is, in this case, could be termed as spurious. So spurious का अर्थ क्या है? ये है जो हम लोग कहते हैं कि ये सही नहीं है, ये गलत है, गलत जवाब, गलत इरादे, spurious, गलत value. So it's a spurious parameter, spurious value. So similarly, spurious correlation. Lastly, we had already explained what is meant by you may remember, correlation coefficient. Uska square karne se we are getting the coefficient of determination. And this square, which is shown by R square, is also, you can see, the ratio between explained variance and total variance. Important questions in the exam have come from this particular formula. That means if the value of the correlation coefficient, मान लीजिए 0.6, that means 0.6 का जो square है, that means 0.36, यानी 36% of the observation can be accounted for. This is called the coefficient of determination. And this is also known as the ratio between the explained variance and total variance, which is also equal to R square. So R is correlation coefficient. R square is known as the coefficient of determination. And R square is also the ratio between explained variance and total variance. So if R square gives you the fraction of explained variance to total variance, then how can I get unexplained variance? Simple. It is 1 minus R square. So please see two of the last important formula on correlation coming on the slide. We are on 14 now. And you can see, I'm sure, that the correlation coefficient R, it is having further application. R square means coefficient of determination, and it is also the measure to show the ratio of explained variance and total variance. Similarly, 1 minus R square gives you the unexplained variance divided by the total variance. With this, we move on to the last part of our discussion on the regression analysis. So already we have got a fairly good idea about what is correlation, सहसंबंध है, और जैसे हम लोग देख रहे थे between say advertisement expense and sales, अगर हम लोग को पता है कि भाई सेल्स और एडवर्टाइजमेंट के बीच का सहसंबंध क्या है, क्या ये पॉजिटिव है? अगर पॉजिटिव है, इसकी ताकत क्या है? What is the value? So once we know their relationships, it becomes easy for us now to apply the relation, and then we can go for some projection, estimation, prediction, यानी जो हम लोग भविष्यवाणी कहते हैं. And we have already discussed, I'm sure you have noted that there are two variables here. हम लोग पूरा जो correlation regression chapter जो है, इसमें हम लोग univariate की जगह bivariate data लेके काम कर रहे हैं. So there are two variables, X and Y. In most of the cases, you will find X is known as the cause and Y is the effect. X can be termed as the independent variable, whereas Y is the dependent variable, क्योंकि Y का वैल्यू X का जो वैल्यू उसके ऊपर आधारित है या फिर निर्भर करता है. So therefore we will look at linear regression. Of course we have other types of regressions, but for our curriculum it is restricted only to straight line. So once again, for your quick recap, Y is the dependent variable, जैसे मैंने बताया, क्योंकि X का जो वैल्यू है, X अगर इंडिपेंडेंट है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल एडवर्टाइजमेंट एक्सपेंसेस आपको पता है ये इंडिपेंडेंट है, लेकिन एडवर्टाइजमेंट एक्सपेंसेस के ऊपर कंपनी का सेल्स निर्भर करता है. अगर सेल और एडवर्टाइजमेंट के बीच एक पॉजिटिव या नेगेटिव, जो भी आप कहो, अगर सह संबंध है, so therefore this is exactly what is meant by regression. And you can see on this slide, in the lower part of this slide, आप देख सकते हो the classic equation, जो एक रैखिक यानी straight line relation, रैखिक संबंध in Hindi. So you can see y equal to a plus bx, where a is the intercept and here b is the slope. If I write y equal to ax plus b, then b becomes, of course, the intercept and a becomes the slope. So here we have the independent variable x, and y is the dependent variable. You can see there are two parameters, a and b. An example, a very simple example, regression. Local tennis club is charging how much? $5 per hour plus annual membership fee of $25. So there is a fixed, in my understanding, ये example आपको थोड़ा सा fixed cost, variable cost जैसा एक feeling आपको मिलेगा once you see the example. So the local tennis club is charging $5 per hour. So ये थोड़ा सा variable cost जैसा है, यानी ये जो expense है, it depends on number of hours. इसके साथ एक annual membership fee, जो कि it is just a flat, हम लोग कहते हैं ना flat, यानी fixed amount. Even if I do not play tennis, I have to pay the annual membership fee of $25. It is like a fixed cost, and $5 per hour is the variable cost, right? Question is, compute the total cost of playing tennis for 10 hours per month. What will you do? भविष्यवाणी करना है, prediction करना है, predicted cost. But here y now becomes the predicted cost. That means y is the dependent variable. And this is equal to what? We have bx plus a, and the constant, x kya hai? X means number of hours. In this case, it is 10. And we know that the flat fee, the fixed cost, if I can use the term here, is $25, and the variable cost is $5 per hour, and therefore I get a straight line. It's a straight line equation. It's just an equation of it's a linear equation, and this is a very simple example of what we call regression. So we can see the total expected or predicted cost, which is $75. And similarly, when x is 30, we can similarly find out agar 30 घंटे आप खेलोगे per month, what will be the cost. That means here we know the relation between x and y, and once you know x, जो कि independent variable है, आप तुरंत y का value आप निर्धारण कर सकते हो. So this is regression. We will now see the two types of regression line, of course. So please remember, we have y minus y bar equal to regression coefficient byx, x minus x bar, and byx, yani the regression coefficient of y on x. So this is basically equal to, we will see that it is absolutely equal to, we will find here again the application of correlation coefficient, and we will see here that byx, that means the regression coefficient of y on x, this is equal to what? This is equal to the correlation coefficient r multiplied by the standard deviation of y divided by the standard deviation of x. This you have to memorize, just like the previous formula, which I was explaining in details. Please request all students, my request to all the students, please, you need to memorize these formula. And as and when you start solving more and more problems, I'm sure you're doing it because exam is not far off from now. I'm sure you are well prepared. So I'm sure most of you must have remembered this. In case you find some haziness in your mind, please take the pain and the effort of remembering, because in the exam, direct application of these formula have to be used. So therefore, we have the two regression coefficients. If you have y minus y bar, where y bar and x bar are the arithmetic mean. So the regression coefficient byx is equal to correlation coefficient into sigma y by sigma x. Similarly, the reverse, if the equation is reverse, x minus x bar equal to a coefficient bxy into y minus y bar, then the regression coefficient is just opposite. That means now we are finding bxy, regression coefficient bxy, and it is equal to the correlation coefficient multiplied by numerator में कौन सा जाएगा, पहले sigma x होगा, नीचे आएगा sigma y. So you just need to remember these two important formula. And the last part of our discussion will be with regard to the particular ये जो दो हम लोग coefficient देख रहे हैं, regression coefficient, one is byx, that means regression coefficient of y on x, x के ऊपर, मतलब byx कब आएगा? When you have something like y equal to a plus bx pattern का expression जब होगा, then we will use byx. And when you have something like x is equal to say a plus by, then we will use bxy. So ये जो दो regression coefficient है, that is byx and bxy, last part of chapter 17 will deal with the specific relation between them. And that is absolutely the concluding part. So therefore, once we are moving into the last part, before that, just quickly see the points given in the lower part of the slide. Correlation में अक्सर cause and effect we actually do not imply. We just try to see इनमें संबंध है कि नहीं, सह संबंध है कि नहीं. लेकिन regression analysis में cause and effect के बिना कुछ नहीं होगा. And therefore, in case of correlation, in the last part of our discussion, शायद आप लोगों को याद होगा कि I was mentioning something, explaining something like what is called zero correlation, या फिर nonsense correlation, या फिर spurious correlation. But here you will see in the case of regression, there is nothing like nonsense regression. क्योंकि regression में it has to be causal, cause and effect होना ही है. Otherwise, regression cannot be calculated. The regression equations cannot be calculated. So we will see a very simple, a very small example of regression. So the relationship between advertisement expenses and sales revenue, here, same formula we are using. We know that when it's given, X is the advertisement expenses and Y is the sales revenue. So we are trying to find out all the possible values. From here, हम लोग क्या करेंगे? We will find out the regression equation. And उसके बाद हम लोग भविष्यवाणी भी कर पाएंगे कि अगर आपका advertisement expense इतना डॉलर है, आपका revenue कितना होगा. So a very simple, but it will absolutely clear all your doubts and you will have a complete understanding. You can see here we have X, which shows all the advertisement expenses. Please note ये बाइवेरिएट है, दो सेट ऑफ वेरिएबल है और हम लोग साइमल्टेनियसली उस पे काम कर रहे हैं. So we have x given and y given. So we are finding out x squared and then xy. Parallelly, we are getting sigma x. Sigma x कितना है? 5, 4, 3, 12, 13, 14, 15. So sigma x is 15. Sigma y similarly comes to 10. Sigma x square निकालिए 55 and you have sigma xy which works out to 37. If you know sigma x, you can find out x bar. क्योंकि equation हम लोग का है y minus y bar, that is mean of y, equal to regression coefficient multiplied by x minus x bar. So we also need to find out y bar, yani average of y, arithmetic mean of y and the arithmetic mean of x. So here we have found out arithmetic mean of x, 15 by 5. I hope it makes sense. Sigma x kitna hai? 15 hai, 15 hai, and number of years observation is 5. So we are getting x bar 3. Y bar nikaliye, sigma y is 10, number of observation 5. So naturally sigma y bar, only y bar comes to 2. So therefore we find out the value of b, which is the regression coefficient, and it comes to 0.7. So the same formula, that means we have, the formula is here, covariance xy divided by sigma square x. Conversely, we can write it as correlation coefficient multiplied by sigma y divided by sigma x. So this works out to 0.7. So now you know everything. You know x bar, जो कि 3 हुआ है, y bar जो कि 2 कैलकुलेशन हुआ है, और b यानी रिग्रेशन कोएफिशिएंट जो 0.7 है. सो आखिर में हम लोग उसको डालेंगे किसमें? वी हैव टू फर्स्ट फाइंड आउट लास्ट फैक्टर इज a, क्योंकि दो पैरामीटर है a और b. So now we know that we are putting the value of y bar and x bar, and we are getting the value of a also. A is the intercept. So now with this, we now get the final regression equation, which comes to y is equal to minus 0.1 plus 0.7 into x, where you can see this is of the form y equal to a plus bx, where a is 0.1 minus 0.1, ये है intercept, and b यानी regression coefficient का value है 0.7, right? So this is a very simple and important equation we have got. Okay, now we move to the next one, exam review for regression line. Lastly, for perfect correlation, please let us see the important relation. Mean value of x and y can be obtained by the point of intersection of the two regression lines. इसको याद रखना है. Plus, the higher the degree of correlation between the variables, x और y के बीच जितना correlation बढ़ेगा, correlation coefficient बढ़ेगा, the angle between the two lines will become smaller and smaller. So you need to just remember these facts. Properties of correlation coefficient. Please see on regression how the two regression coefficients, now we will link it. The two regression coefficient kya hai? Byx and bxy. These are linked with the correlation coefficient. It is very interesting and very important also. You can see the relation R, which is correlation coefficient, is the square root between the product of the two regression coefficients. So I can say that R is the geometric mean of the two regression coefficients. I'm sure you will agree. Byx into bxy, जो product आएगा, you get the square root, we are getting the value of R. But last twist is, if byx is positive, then bxy will also be positive. And if one regression coefficient is more than 1, the other regression coefficient always has to be less than 1. So these are some important relationship or properties of regression coefficient which you need to remember. Last but not the least, a very favorite, I think, questions, very common questions keep coming on this last aspect. And वो ये है कि coefficient of correlation must have the same sign as that of the regression coefficient. So byx, bxy, and rxy, they must have the same signs. And of course, you can see the arithmetic mean of byx and bxy is either equal to or greater than the correlation coefficient. So we see the last few points here before we go to the question set. R, byx and bxy, यानी दो regression coefficient, that is byx, bxy, और इन दोनों के साथ R, correlation coefficient, they must share the same sign. Either they are all positive, all three are positive, or they are all three are negative. But you cannot have something like this, कि correlation coefficient is positive, regression coefficient is negative. Please remember this very important point. That's why I'm drawing your kind attention for this. An important question, very similar to the type you expect in the exam. चलिए आपके सामने है. यदि परीक्षा में ये दिया हुआ है कि regression coefficient of y on x यानी byx is 0.4 यानी plus 0.4, और अगर दिया हुआ है कि regression coefficient of x on y is 0.9, क्वेश्चन है कि कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट का वैल्यू क्या होगा. सो प्लीज पे वेरी क्लोज अटेंशन, स्टेप बाय स्टेप वर्किंग आउट. यहां पे आप देख सकते हो, फर्स्ट हम लोग फॉर्मूला अप्लाई करेंगे. वी नो दैट द कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट बिटवीन एक्स एंड वाई इज द स्क्वायर रूट ऑफ द प्रोडक्ट ऑफ द टू रिग्रेशन कोएफिशिएंट, यानी बी वाई एक्स और बी एक्स वाई का जो प्रोडक्ट होगा उस प्रोडक्ट का स्क्वायर रूट निकालेंगे और वी विल गेट द कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट. लेकिन याद रखना होगा कि कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट बी वाई एक्स एंड बी एक्स वाई तीनों का साइन शुड बी सेम. ईदर ऑल थ्री आर पॉजिटिव या फिर ऑल थ्री आर नेगेटिव. very important property, very important concept. So therefore please note, in this case we have 0.4, यानी यहां पे बी वाई एक्स और बी एक्स वाई दोनों ही पॉजिटिव है. परफेक्ट, इट कैन हैपन. सो वी आर गेटिंग द प्रोडक्ट 0.36. बट देयर कुड बी अ ट्रैप, एंड द ट्रैप इज हियर दैट स्क्वायर रूट जब निकालेंगे 0.36, you know square root is either positive or negative. So here we will take the positive square root only. Why? यहाँ पे -0.6 आंसर हो ही नहीं सकता, क्योंकि साइन आप देखिए, क्योंकि दोनों बी वाई एक्स और बी एक्स वाई पॉजिटिव है, इसीलिए हमारे जो फाइनल आंसर निकल रहा है, वी आर ब्रिंगिंग आउट द फाइनल आंसर विच इज कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट, वो भी पॉजिटिव होगा. अगर यहां पे दिया हुआ होता, मान लीजिए कि say it is given that byx is -0.4 and bxy is -0.9, दोनों अगर माइनस होता, क्या करेंगे? अभी दोनों को मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे. अब क्या होगा? -0.4 इंटू -0.9, इट विल गिव यू +0.36. +0.36 का हम लोग स्क्वायर रूट निकालेंगे. इट विल गिव अस टू रूट्स, +0.6 एंड -0.6. बट देन इन दैट केस, डियर स्टूडेंट्स, हमें क्या करना है? So requesting all students to pay attention to this part कि अगर byx bxy दोनों नेगेटिव है, उनका प्रोडक्ट तो पॉजिटिव होगा, उसका स्क्वायर रूट निकालेंगे, क्योंकि कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट निकलना है. हमें पता है कि कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट इज द स्क्वायर रूट ऑफ द प्रोडक्ट ऑफ द टू रिग्रेशन कोएफिशिएंट. बट गलती से भी इन दिस एग्जांपल जो मैं अभी आपके सामने मैं पेश कर रहा हूं, कि अगर दोनों रिग्रेशन कोएफिशिएंट माइनस है, -4 और -0.4 और -0.9 अगर दिया हुआ है, प्रोडक्ट तो 0.36 पॉजिटिव आएगा, उसका स्क्वायर रूट निकालेंगे. लेकिन प्लीज कंसिडर द नेगेटिव रूट. दैट मींस द स्क्वायर रूट ऑफ 0.36 विल बी आइदर 0.6 +0.6 और -0.6. सो प्लीज रिमेंबर, साइन चेक करिएगा लास्ट में. बी वाई एक्स बी एक्स वाई का जो साइन है, आपका जो कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट निकलेगा when you get the square root, that sign must also be the same. Right? I hope you have understood this important point. Now we go to I have prepared the quick, I call it the QRH, the quick reference handbook, or QRT, you can call it the QRP, the quick revision points, and the master table for the exam. So once again, as we just get ready to take up the last questions, last few, we have another 5-6 slides. Carl Pearson's, yaad rakhiye, covariance XY divided by sigma x into sigma y. This is the product moment correlation. Rank correlation coefficient, यानी Spearman's rank correlation coefficient, जो हम लोग RCC कहते हैं, that is nothing, or you can call it SRCC, or Spearman's rank correlation coefficient. Well, that is equal to 1 minus 6 into sigma di square, और denominator में क्या है? n into n square minus 1. Coefficient of concurrent division, please remember we did a classic example. ये आपको exact value of the correlation they will not give you, but it will give you general indication and the pattern and the trend. So here we have seen that the CCD, as we call it, the coefficient of concurrent deviation is equal to plus minus square root of again plus minus 2c minus m divided by m. Jahan pe we saw that m means the number of pairs of deviation, c means the number of concurrent deviations which we see, and we know that total number of observation agar n hai ya 10 hai, then the pair of deviation, how many pairs will be there? 9 pairs, 10 minus 1. Next point for revision, quick revision, range of correlation coefficient -1 to +1. Sign consistency we have just discussed, yani R correlation coefficient or dono regression coefficient BYX or BXY, all three must have the same identical sign. Either all three are negative or all three are positive. Angle between regression lines, please remember it comes as a question ki jab R, if the coefficient of correlation is either +1 or -1, then we will find the two regression lines will be identical, yani ye coincide karenge. But if it is found, say for example, the other way out, if the correlation coefficient is 0, then the two regression lines will be perpendicular, yani 90 degree mein apne aap ko cut karenge. Next table, core difference, yani mukhya jo antar, usko hum log aur ek baar we will go through, we will revisit. कोरिलेशन का क्या ऑब्जेक्टिव है? सिर्फ संबंध, रिश्ते निकालना, डायरेक्शन यानी दिशाएं समझना, क्या ये पॉजिटिव डायरेक्शन में है या नेगेटिव, और उसका ताकत, वैल्यू निकालना. रिग्रेशन कोएफिशिएंट का क्या ऑब्जेक्टिव है? एक वेरिएबल यूज करके दूसरे वेरिएबल को प्रेडिक्ट करना यानी भविष्यवाणी करना. कॉज एंड इफेक्ट, प्लीज रिमेंबर वंस अगेन, कोरिलेशन में कोई कॉज एंड इफेक्ट नहीं होता, लेकिन रिग्रेशन में we know cause and effect is always there. Correlation coefficient limit क्या है? -1 से +1. Both the product, Carl Pearson's product moment correlation, as well as SRCC, that is Spearman's rank correlation coefficient, both have a range of -1 to +1. लेकिन regression coefficient has a different range. Correlation we have seen that origin और scale दोनों बदलने से independent है, लेकिन उसमें हम लोग देख रहे थे कि sign का एक issue है. Both the scale factor must have the same. There is a difference in sign between the two scale factors, then the correlation coefficient sign will also change. Finally, we look at the last three important points. So core objective of correlation to find out the strength and direction. Regression intention is prediction. Nature of variable, we are dealing both with, I would say, multivariate, yani it is a bivariate data. Variables X and Y used both for correlation as well as for regression. Lekin regression mein we are saying that one of them is independent, often termed as stochastic, and the other is, dependent, which is known as stochastic. Usually we say Y is dependent, and the independent is the fixed variable, often shown by X. Mathematical limits we have seen, origin change is independent, no effect on value. But in case of the, we can see scale change, mein hum log dekh sakte hain that in the case of scale change, the sign change will often create a change in the final sign of the correlation coefficient. That means if the two scale factors B and D, if they have different sign, and we are talking about two pairs XY and UV, then we will have RXY, yani correlation coefficient of XY will be minus RUV, provided the scale factors B and D have different signs. So that's very important. That's why I have brought all of them in a differences summary in a table, because this topic, in my very limited understanding, dear students, is very technical. This is a very deep topic, बहुत technical है. It's not like the earlier chapters, इसमें बहुत सारे तकनीकी फॉर्मूला कॉन्सेप्ट है, और इसे चैप्टर काफी यू कैन सी डिटेल्ड है, बिकॉज वी आर डीलिंग विद बोथ कोरिलेशन एंड रिग्रेशन. आखिर में हम लोग मूव करेंगे एमसीक्यू सेट ए. सो वी आर ऑन स्लाइड 20, अनदर 5 स्लाइड्स वी हैव. सो सेट ए पे गौर करेंगे. आई हैव टेकन क्वेश्चन नंबर 1, 7, 8 and 13. Bivariate data are the data collected for what? So it is collected for what? Two variables at the same point of time. So option C. Next one, regression analysis is concerned with what? So if you see, regression analysis is concerned both with mathematical relationship और सी देखिए पॉइंट सी यानी प्रेडिक्टिंग द वैल्यू यानी भविष्यवाणी करना कि अगर मेरे को इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल पता है आई कैन इजीली फाइंड आउट द वैल्यू ऑफ द डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल. सो ऑप्शन नंबर डी पे हम लोग फोकस कर पाएंगे. थर्ड क्वेश्चन नंबर 8, व्हाट इज स्प्यूरियस कोरिलेशन? सो स्प्यूरियस कोरिलेशन मींस ऑप्शन सी. ये दोनों संख्या दोनों वेरिएबल के बीच कुछ कोरिलेशन दिखता है बट इट इज नॉट ड्यू टू कॉज एंड इफेक्ट. दैट मींस इट इज नॉट एस्टैब्लिश्ड थ्रू एनी रीजन लॉजिक. It is an accidental. It is we say na, it is sometimes we say coincidental coincidence. It's like that. Kalpanik, we say. Next is correlation between shoe size and intelligence. Well, this is zero, so no correlation. Next, we move to number 16 from the set A. Pearson's correlation coefficient is used for finding what? Carl Pearson's respected, very strong formula. Correlation coefficient is used for finding what? Linear, yeah. So correlation for linear relation. 16th question, option B. 17th question, product moment correlation coefficient is considered for what? Finding the nature and finding, yes, both the nature and amount. So question 17, see, these are wonderful questions, I must say. And once you handle these questions at random, well, I think the concept becomes clearer, right? 17th question will be, I think, both the nature as well as amount. Yani correlation coefficient मेरे को क्या provide कर रहा है? It gives us the sign and the amount. So maybe minus 0.6 or maybe plus 0.85. So I get both the nature and the amount. 18th question, if the value of correlation coefficient is positive, then the points in a scattered diagram tend to cluster in what direction? We were discussing this. If the value of correlation coefficient is positive, so आप जहां पे बैठे हो, from your angle, you draw the x-axis, x and y axis, you will see that आपके angle से the correlation coefficient अगर positive होगा, then the points in the scattered diagram लोअर लेफ्ट कॉर्नर से अपर राइट कॉर्नर की तरफ मूव करेगा अगर पॉजिटिव है. अगर नेगेटिव होगा लाइक प्राइस एंड डिमांड, तब ये ऑपोजिट हो जाएगा. सो दिस इज नंबर 18, अनदर ब्यूटीफुल क्वेश्चन. 21st question, covariance between two variables. Okay, covariance between two variables, yeah, it can be negative as well. Strictly it can be either positive, negative or zero. So option D. Number 29, when we are not concerned with the magnitude of the two variables, what to use? We will use CCD. We have discussed this, that the correlation coefficient gives you exact amount of correlation. आपको वैल्यू मिल जाएगा. लेकिन अगर हमारे पास उतना समय नहीं है, जल्द से जल्द एक ट्रेंड समझना है, तब हम लोग क्या करेंगे? या तो स्कैटर डायग्राम या फिर CCD यानी कोएफिशिएंट ऑफ कॉन्करेंट डेविएशन. So question 29, option C पे ताला लगाया जाए. Option C is the right answer. 33rd question, since blood pressure of a person depends on age, we need to consider what? So blood pressure depending on age. So I will say age is the independent variable. So age हम लोग maybe we write as X and it is the cause, and BP, that is blood pressure, is Y, and it is the effect. Correct? I hope I'm saying something correct. So 33rd question, blood pressure ultimately I will say is a function of age. है ना? Age जैसे बढ़ेगा, blood pressure बढ़ेगा. वजन जैसे बढ़ेगा, blood pressure बढ़ेगा. So आमतौर पे, of course, exceptions are there. So question 33, we have to find the regression equation of y on x, that means blood pressure on age. Option A पे हम लोग लॉक करेंगे. Moving on, students, to the next lot. We are on 21 now. Slide 21, we check the 37th question from the study material exercise. The regression line of y on x is derived how? Regression जो line होगा, normally what we try to do, minimization of the vertical distances, usually if you'll see in the scattered diagram, जितना vertical distance घट जाएगा उतना ही it will come closer to the straight line. यानी deviation, scatterness और घटाना है. For 42nd question, if the coefficient of correlation is 0.7, percentage of variation unaccounted for. This is basically the unaccounted variance. So please see coefficient of correlation. I will write this is 0.7. Fair enough. So R is 0.7. So therefore the coefficient of determination is what? R square. So it is 0.7 into 0.7, which is 0.49. Please note 0.49 is also the measure for explained variance. अब 0.49 क्या इसका अर्थ क्या है? It means 49% of the variance is accounted for. तब unaccounted variance क्या होगा? It will be 1 minus 0.49. So it is 51, यानी 51%, or it's given in percentage. So 42nd question, we will opt for option C. Right. Many of the students are quickly going through the answering. Thank you for that, but we have to move ahead, and some more questions are there for your practice. 42nd question comes up, 41st question, sorry. If the coefficient of correlation is minus 0.9, then what is the coefficient of determination? Another important question. So here correlation coefficient is minus 0.9. Coefficient of determination is what? It is the square of the correlation coefficient. So in this case, the coefficient of determination is minus 0.9 square. यानी minus 0.9 into minus 0.9. इसका answer होगा 0.81, option B. We proceed next to directly to कुछ सूत्रों में अभी हम लोग फोकस कर लेंगे. और एक बार आपके लिए कोवेरियंस याद रखिए, बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण सूत्र है, बिकॉज कोवेरियंस इज द बेस. इसके ऊपर कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट खड़ा है, और कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट अगर हम लोग सही से याद कर पाएंगे तब जाके रिग्रेशन कोएफिशिएंट हम लोग समझेंगे और उसको सक्सेसफुली वी विल बी एबल टू रिप्रोड्यूस. कार्ल पियर्सन याद रखिए, कोवेरियंस xy डिवाइडेड बाय सिग्मा x इनटू सिग्मा y. स्पीयरमैन और एक बार देख लीजिए, और रिग्रेशन इक्वेशन और एक बार फटाफट हम लोग रिव्यू कर लेते हैं कि रिग्रेशन इक्वेशन ऑफ y ऑन x means this is where we use the regression coefficient byx. Regression equation of x and y जब होगा तब हम लोग regression coefficient bxy use करेंगे. We have already seen that the correlation coefficient r and byx, bxy ये तीनों में भी एक संबंध है. So therefore we can see three of them are friends. So byx into bxy. That means the product of the two regression coefficients, if you find out the square root, you will get the correlation coefficient. But please remember, both the regression coefficient and the correlation coefficient must have the same sign. Finally, we move on to discuss about the questions in the MTP. Let us see the MTP. Okay, so we have already done number of questions, including we talked about questions like even the coefficient of determination, right? So if I say that 0.6, chaliye, R is equal to 0.6, yani correlation coefficient is chaliye minus 0.6. Question is, what is the coefficient of determination? So it will become R square, that is 0.36. If the question comes, what is the explained variance? That means R square gives you the explained variance, यानी 36% आएगा. अगर unexplained variance होगा, क्या होगा? 1 minus 0.36, यानी 0.64, यानी 64%. So please remember this again. Coming to the MTP, we have a couple of questions here. We have number 1 coming up. Okay, 4y minus 5x equal to 15 is a regression line, and the coefficient of correlation is given. What is the value of the regression coefficient? Okay, so let us see the questions one by one. Now, 93rd question, we have correlation coefficient R is given, x or y ke beech. And what is the relation between R and minus y? Oh, lovely. 93rd question. So if the correlation coefficient between x and y is 0.5, the correlation coefficient between x and minus y there will be a change of sign. So it will become minus 0.5. Question number 93. 95th question, for a positive and perfectly correlated random variable. Please, I have underlined the important part of this question. For a positive and perfectly correlated and positive. The question number 95 from MTP 2026 gives us the hint that in the case of question number 95, the correlation coefficient is +1. First hint. पूछा गया है, one of the regression coefficient is 1.4. And okay, chaliye, let's take BYX as 1.4. Standard deviation of X is given. Yani sigma X is 2. We have to find out the variance of Y. Intelligent question. 95th question, let us try and see. So we know that the correlation coefficient. So what is BYX equal to? Regression coefficient of Y on X is equal to correlation coefficient R multiplied by sigma Y divided by sigma X, right? That is BYX is equal to R multiplied by sigma Y. Numerator में sigma Y होगा, denominator में sigma X. BYX is given regression coefficient 1.4. So I will write 1.4 is equal to R into sigma Y by sigma X. R is the hint which is given. ये positive perfectly correlated है. यानी R का value है 1. एक unity. So 1 multiplied by sigma Y by sigma X. Standard deviation of X यानी sigma X दिया हुआ है वो है 2. So I am getting the equation BYX is 1.4, that is equal to 1 multiplied by sigma Y divided by 2, because sigma X का value दिया हुआ है 2. So by cross multiplying, I am getting sigma Y equal to 1.4 into 2, यानी 2.8. Question है variance of Y क्या है? So we have found out the standard deviation of Y, which is 2.8. So what is the variance? The variance is 2.8 square, because you know standard deviations को square करने से we get the variance. So 91st question, okay, we have done it. It's a question of regression coefficient. The next one we can see 93rd is 0.5. 95th question, which we have just, I have explained. You can see here that the coefficient, right? In the 95th question, you can see R is 1, sigma X is 2, it is given. Therefore, please understand from the language of the question, a hint is given in the question, यानी R का value 1 दिया हुआ है, but indirectly, इसको hide करके, आप conceal किया हुआ है, आपको निकालना पड़ेगा, ढूंढना पड़ेगा. So therefore, sigma Y comes to 2.8. So variance Y is 2.8 square, which will work out to 7.84. एक alert जाते जाते. So we will question alert देख लीजिए. This could be a trap in the exam, you know. If BYX is given minus 0.8 and BXY is given minus 0.45, R का value क्या होगा? So step by step अगर करें तो calculation अगर करें, so 0.8 minus है BYX और 0.45 BXY, दोनों negative है. दोनों को multiply करने से you are getting plus 0.36. स्क्वायर रूट निकालेंगे तो 0.6 आएगा. अभी काफी बार ऐसा हो सकता है, गोल्डन साइन ट्रैप से बचने के लिए ये है कि काफी स्टूडेंट्स, इवन आई मेड लॉट ऑफ मिस्टेक्स, सो आई एम स्टिल अ स्टूडेंट, बट I nowadays I'm a bit more experienced student, but in my initial days I used to make a lot of mistakes because I used to forget this particular relation, and sometimes doing it fast थोड़ा चार्ज अप होके करते थे और साइन को नजरअंदाज करके आई यूज्ड टू गेट वेरी पुअर मार्क्स इन मैथमेटिक्स, सो इन स्टैटिस्टिक्स. सो सारे स्टूडेंट्स को मेरा रिक्वेस्ट है कि प्लीज नोट, इन दिस केस वी विल टेक द नेगेटिव वैल्यू ऑफ द स्क्वायर रूट. व्हाई? बिकॉज बोथ BYX एंड BXY आर नेगेटिव. तो उस हिसाब से आपको R की नेगेटिव वैल्यू जो है वही ज्ञात करना पड़ेगा. अगर और एक संभावना एग्जाम पॉसिबिलिटी, अगर परीक्षा में आपको ऐसा कोई ऑप्शन दिया गया है, से BYX इज गिवन 0.8 प्लस 0.8, लेकिन bxy minus 0.2. And the question is कि okay, byx is plus 0.8 and bxy is minus 0.2. What is the value of r? So जल्दबाजी एग्जाम का माहौल है, so it's a question of success, right? I have to be successful, I have to crack the exam. So speed के साथ साथ अक्सर alertness, speed, higher the speed, sometimes the alertness falls. यानी इन दोनों में भी कभी-कभी negative correlation हो जाता है. Right. As I said, in my case, with higher speed, I used to lose my concentration and awareness. So मैंने गलती कर बैठता था. So in this type of question, maybe if I sit with you in the exam, maybe I will think that, okay, it's given byx is plus 0.8, bxy is minus 0.2. Okay, let me quickly find out the product. Okay, 0.8 and 0.2 means 0.16. And then quickly I will go for the square root. I will get 0.04 and I will proudly say, yeah, I've got the answer. No way. So it is a trap for me. So in this case, ये situation हो ही नहीं सकता क्योंकि byx और bxy दोनों का साइन यहाँ पे अलग है. So it could be a trap. And out of the 4 given alternatives, there could be one alternative option कि data is invalid या फिर data is wrong या फिर data is not reasonable या फिर the data is inconsistent. So we should be very careful. I request all students on this platform that please make sure that you are aware of this particular simple relation between r, byx and bxy, because this might lead us to, if we don't remember this golden sign relationship, we might enter into a trap and may lose marks. Okay. Lastly, we see the RTP, and this is slide 23. Yes, about to complete. Okay, R is given 0.8. What is the coefficient of determination? Okay, a very easy question. I'm sure everyone will get it right. We know the coefficient of determination is square of the coefficient of correlation. Yani yahan pe it is 0.8 into 0.8, so 0.64. This is RTP. I'll just check, I think, for this year, current year. We will take the next one, and this is when R is equal to 0, covariance kya hoga? When R is 0, covariance क्या होगा? अगर R 0 है, we know R is equal to covariance xy divided by sigma x sigma y. Formula क्या है? Please think of the product moment correlation coefficient. Carl Pearson's product moment correlation. We know that the correlation coefficient is equal to covariance between xy divided by the product of the individual standard deviation. That means covariance xy divided by sigma x into sigma y. So if R is 0, that means covariance has to be 0. So numerator will be 0 in this case. So option C. 28th question, the two lines of regression become identical. Yes, very important. We had discussed it earlier. ये तभी होगा जब R is either +1 या फिर R is -1. That means only in case where we have perfect correlation, either perfect positive correlation, otherwise it is perfect negative correlation. So I will question 28. These are, I request all students to, those who are part of the live program, please practice. Those who will watch it later, requesting everyone on the platform to please practice all these very carefully for the exam. 28th question, the option comes to D, because both for A and B, for both scenarios, the relation will hold good. यानी जब R +1 है या R -1 है, दोनों situation में the regression lines will become identical. So we quickly see whether we have given the right answer here. And finally, we have 95th question. This is on the CCD for n pair of observations. The coefficient of concurrent deviation is 1/√3. If there are 6 concurrent deviation, n kya hai? Okay. So we know the formula. Let me take a fresh page quickly. And we know that CCD is equal to plus minus square root, again plus minus 2c minus m by m. Right? Just sometimes you need to recollect from your memory and be absolutely clear about the formula. अब यहाँ पे दिया है कि 6 concurrent deviations. 6 concurrent deviations means C is equal to 6. Okay. Coefficient of concurrent deviation, that is given 1 by root 3. So I will write 1 by root 3 is equal to plus minus square root of, again plus minus 2C minus M. Okay. Now we do not know M because they have not given the number of pairs of deviation. We know that the number of pairs of deviation is always 1 less than the number of observation. So you can see what we do here is 2C minus M. 2C is 6, as you can see. So we will write 2C is 12. 12 minus M by M. So from there, we can find out it's a quadratic equation, I guess. No, it's a linear equation. So from there, we can get the value of M. M is the number of pairs of deviation. We know that M is always equal to N minus 1. That means agar M 12 nikalta hai, that means number of observation 13 hai. So therefore, in this case, the number of observations comes to 10. Right, so that is 95 and is 10, fine. With this, we come to the end and we see lastly, जाने से पहले key revision metrics और एक बार महत्वपूर्ण बिंदु for the exam. Once again, I request you, ये chapter at least मेरे लिए काफी technical है. बहुत सारे सर पहले बता रहे थे, lot of important formula. So once again, quick revision, correlation coefficient, फिर से एक बार देख लीजिएगा. Value ranges from -1 to +1. Regression lines y minus y bar equal to regression coefficient byx into x minus x bar. Yani here x bar y bar means the arithmetic mean. Properties of signs याद रखिए, correlation coefficient byx and bxy. Yani दो जो regression coefficient और correlation coefficient should have the same sign. Change of origin and scale, we have discussed about it. दोबारा नीचे मैंने यहाँ पे सब प्लॉटिंग कर दिया है. You can see positive correlation which is from the left hand corner going up, and in case of negative correlation, left hand top to the right hand corner on the right side. And then the range of correlation coefficient p equal to -1, r equal to -1 means perfect negative, and r equal to 0 means no linear relationship, yani zero correlation, plus core formula जो मुख्य नियम है, coefficient ranges, geometric mean, you know, we've discussed about it, that the correlation coefficient is the geometric mean of the two regression coefficient, but remember that it must have the same sign. All three must have the same sign. Origin change we have discussed, and scale change we have seen that in case of the change of scale, especially for correlation coefficient, if there is a change of scale and the factors B and D, the two scale factors, if they have different sign, then the correlation coefficient will also change in terms of sign. Lastly, perfect correlation when R is ±1. And in that case, the angle between the two lines is 0 because they are identical. Zero correlation we have seen. R is 0, then it's zero correlation. In that case, the angle between the two lines will be at 90 degree. Please note, variance split, yani the coefficient of determination, once again, quickly recap, it is R square. It is shown by explained variance by total variance. Therefore, unexplained variance is equal to 1 minus R square, right? Finally, concurrent deviation, plus minus square root of, again, plus minus 2C minus M by M. Right, so these are the important formula, and we have done and covered, explained all the meanings and the concept of correlation. We have examined each of the concept, principles, formula, and practical for scatter diagram, Carl Pearson's product moment correlation, the SRCC, the Spearman's RCC rank correlation, and CCD. And then we have examined and understood all the important properties in case of regression coefficients. Scale and origin wala jo hai, it's a very favorite MCQ coming in the exam. Please be very careful about that. And the final sutra jo talika jo aapko hamesha you must remember by heart is the formula for the covariance. Number 2, the Carl Pearson's coefficient, correlation coefficient. Please remember Spearman's rank correlation coefficient, and please remember the regression coefficient BYX equal to the correlation coefficient R multiplied by BY, that's sigma Y by sigma X, and BXY is just the reverse. Fundamental property we have seen is the square root. R is the square root of the regression coefficient, the product of the regression coefficient, but they all must have the same sign. That means R, BYX and BXY, either all three are positive या फिर सारे जो तीनों जो है, all three are negative. So on this note, I will wind up the session. Thank you all. Thanks a lot. And I will only, this is the second last session I have with you. So please put in your efforts. I'm sure you are all working hard. मेहनत जो है इसका कोई, there is, there is a कहावत कि there is no abbreviation to success. So there's no shortcut to success. We have to work hard, practice, prepare. Ensure करिए कि आपका effort और success के बीच you must have a perfect positive correlation. So R+1 पकड़ के practice करिए. See you next day. Till then, keep practicing and keep your focus. Have a positive attitude, and see you on the next day to take up the last session, that is chapter 18 on index numbers. Thank you and see you. So technical team requesting tech support team to kindly conclude the session. Thank you, sir.